in a strange movie. Horns and teeth and zombie groans. Goats unite to smash the bones. Kicking fears and smashing domes. Can't believe what's going on. Goats attack the zombies now. Hooves of fury show them how. In the night we hear the sound of chaos raining all around. Bleating loud the charge ahead. Zombies shiver filled with dread. Ghosts become the heroes led by instinct and their mighty spread. Ghosts attack the zombies now. Hooves of fury show them how. In the night we hear the sound of chaos raining all around. Bleating love the charge ahead. Zombie shiver filled with dread. Ghosts become the heroes led by instinct and the mighty spread. Ghosts attack the zombies now. Hooves of fury show them how. In the night we hear the sound of chaos raining all around. Bleating loud the charge ahead. Zombies shiver filled with dread. Ghosts become the heroes led by instinct and the mighty spread. Funny battle in the dark. Ghosts are constantly leaving a mark. Zombies run is quite a lark. Endless fight in the strange park.
Schooner.
Oh my, oh my, oh my. Have we got a good one for you tonight? Man, oh man. Let's see if we can rip these glasses off here.
Holy crap, what the hell did you fall off of?
Oh, what is that?
You need to find that horse and you need to find that horse and have it kick you again.
No, Shizzy does all these home improvement projects
You're
around
all
the house.
kinds
He
of
made a
jacked up.
mistake.
John his eye out.
I was.
Shoot your eye out, kid.
Yeah.
They said the BB
damn
gun
Red
was
Riders.
okay. They said the BB gun was okay.
It was
What
the
I
nail
know.
gun. It was, yeah.
This is why you're
Nail
supposed to wear
gun.
eye protection, kids.
Mama, look what the horse did to me.
I was welding, and it was doing fine until like it just messed up one eye and screwed up the other.
How many fingers do you see there, Shizzy?
Like, Jesus, yes.
I know, right?
It's just a burning man. Except I was the one burning. It might have been because I didn't take any penicillin. I don't know why.
Well, that happens.
Yeah.
Well, penicillin doesn't cure everything. I mean,
Well,
penicillin is a good antibiotic. Yeah, it's a, you know.
to anyone who is the most generally adopted your mother.
Well, that's one way to start out the night. Gee.
Hey, that is. I mean, at least she did it near Halloween, so that way she can like walk around and beat people.
Play it
with
off.
I'm sorry to hear that. That really sucks. I mean,
Yes.
I thought I was bad off, but oh well. Well, you know, we do have Legends of Sleepy Hollow, but we can't start that right away because it's not really a long story.
Oh.
True.
Okay. Okay.
It is true.
Have you...
So I did pull up one, and it got shot down by Diva and Volstorm. They were like,
It did.
"Oh, no.
Did
Now,
indeed.
what is it?
No. No.
What do you
No.
do?
No.
Culturally appropriating.
Yeah, he was. It
Yeah.
was not
It would
appropriate.
have been good. It would have been good.
No,
But we're not
it's
doing it
rude.
because.
Y'all can't do stuff like that. Come on now.
Oh, I'll show you later. I'll show you
Okay.
later. It's not appropriate. It's not appropriate for the YouTubes. Just
okay.
put it out that way.
I'll show you later.
Just take turns talking dirty to us. Damn, girl. Damn, girl. Now, at some point in time, I'm going to have to pull my eye out because this is, I can't see a damn thing out of this.
We're still in a dirty
Interesting.
puddle.
That's right. You can just lick it and pop it back in later.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I can do that.
Just like Pirates of the Caribbean.
Just hack to it and spin on that thing.
That's right.
Oh, I'll have to. So I do have The Red Room by H.G. Wells.
Okay.
And I can assure you, said I, that it will take every tangible ghost to frighten me and I stood up before the fire with my glass eye in my hand. It's your own choosing, said the man with the withered arm and glanced at me askance. 20 years, said I have lived and never a ghost have I seen as yet. The old woman sat staring hard into the fire, her pale eyes wide open. Ay, she broke in. And 20 years you have lived and never seen the likes of this house, I reckon. There's a many things to see when one's still but 28. She swayed her head slowly from side to side. Many things to see and sorrow for.
Marta, is that you?
It should be me. I don't know.
Well, you
Sounds
can do
like
that. You can read it if you want to.
being silly.
I have suspected these old people were trying to enhance the spectral terrors of their house by this droning insistence. I put down my empty glass eye on the table and looked about the room, caught a glimpse of myself, abbreviated and broadened to an impossible sturdiness in the queer old mirror beside the china cupboard.
Yes, girl.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I said, if I see anything tonight, I shall be much the wiser, for I come to the business with an open mind.
Told you.
It's your own choosing, said the man with the withered arm once more. I heard the faint sound of a stick and a shambling step on the flags of the passage outside. The door creaked on its hinges as a second old man entered, more bent, more wrinkled, more aged than even the first. He supported himself by the help of a crutch. His eyes were covered by a shade, and his lower lip, half averted, hung pale and pink from his decaying yellow teeth. He made straight for an armchair on the opposite side of the table, sat down clumsily, and began to cough. The man with the withered hand gave a newcomer a short glance of positive dislike. The old woman took no notice of his arrival, but remained with her eyes fixed steadily on the fire. I said, it's your own choosing, said the man with the withered hand when the coughing had ceased for a while. It's my own choosing, I answered. The man with the shade became aware of my presence for the first time and threw his head back for a moment and sideways to see me. I caught a momentary glimpse of his eyes, small and bright and inflamed, when he began to cough and sputter again. Why don't you drink? Said the man with the withered arm, pushing his beer towards him. The man with the shade poured out a glassful with a shaking hand that splashed half as much again on the deal table. A monstrous shadow of him crouched upon the wall and marked his action as he poured and drank. I must confess I had scarcely expected these grotesque custodians. There is, to my mind, something inhumane in senility, something crouching and atavismus, something. The human qualities seemed to drop from old people insensibly day by day. The three of them made me feel uncomfortable with their gaunt silences, their bent carriage, their evident unfriendliness to me and to one another. And that night, perhaps, I was in the mood for uncomfortable impressions. I resolved to get away from their vague foreshadowing of the evil things upstairs. If, I said, you'll show me to the haunted room of yours, I'll make myself comfortable there. The old man with the cough jerked his head back so suddenly that it startled me and shot another glance of his red eyes at me from out of the darkness under the shade, but no one answered me. I waited a minute, glancing from one to the other. The old woman stared like a dead body, glaring into the fire with lackluster eyes. If I said a little louder. If you will show me to this haunted room of yours, I'll relieve you from the task entertaining me. There's a candle to the slab outside the door, said the man with the withered arm, looking at my feet as he addressed me. But if you go into the red room tonight... Oh, this of all nights, said the old woman softly. You go alone. Very well, I answered shortly. And which way do I go? If you want to take over for a little bit there.
No.
Wait, pop this thing out of my eye.
You go along the passage for a bit, said he, nodding his head on the shoulder at the door. Until you come to a spiral staircase. It gets really damn confusing. And on the second landing is a door covered with green baize, whatever the hell that is. Going through that and down the long corridor to the end to the red room is on your left and up the steps. Have I got that right? I said, and repeated his directions. He corrected me in one particular. And you really are going, said the man with the shade, looking at me again for the third time with that queer, unnatural tittling of his face.
Well, this night of all nights,
Whispered the old woman. What is what I came for? I said, and moved toward the door. As I did so, the old man with the shade rose and staggered round the table so as to be closer to the others and to the fire. At the door I turned and looked at them and saw they were all close together, dark against the firelight, staring at me over their shoulders with an intent expression on their ancient faces.
Well, good night,
I said, setting the door open. It's your own choosing, said the man with the withered arm. I left the door wide open until the candle was well alight, and then I shut them in and walked down the chilly, echoing passage. I must confess that the oddness of the three pensioners in whose charge her ladyship had left the castle and the deep-toned, old-fashioned furniture of the housekeeper's room in which they foregathered had affected me curiously, in spite of my effort to keep myself at a matter-of-fact phase. They seemed to belong to another age, an older age, an age where things spiritual were indeed to be feared, when common sense was uncommon, an age when omens and witches were credible, and ghosts beyond denying. Their very existence, thought I, is spectral. The cut of their clothing, fashions born in dead brains, the ornaments and conveniences in the room about them even are ghostly. The thoughts of vanished men, who still haunt rather than participate in the world of today. As the passage I was in, long and shadowy, with a film of moisture glistening on the wall. You gotta shut the door for that. Was as gaunt and cold as a thing that is dead and rigid.
What's Grandpa doing to Grandma?
Grandpa been dead for a while now, ain't he?
no. Gross.
Grandpa's making Grandma cry.
Oh, God.
That's the hardest she's seen him in years.
It's the biggest smile I've ever seen on her face. But with an effort, I sent such thoughts to the right about. The long, drafty subterranean passage was chilly and dusty, and my candle flared and made the shadows cower and quiver. The echoes rang up and down the spiral suitcase, and a shadow came sweeping up after me, and another fled before me into the darkness overhead. I came to the wide landing and stopped there for a moment, listening to a rustling that I'd fancied I'd heard creeping behind me. And then, satisfied of the absolute silence, pushed open the unwilling baize-covered door and stood in the silent corridor. The effect was... What?
Sorry, nothing. Never mind.
Go ahead.
No. I was going to say, you said spiral suitcase, so I was wondering if that's the one Sarah didn't use.
Yeah.
The one she didn't use?
Yeah, that's like the Harry Potter one. She got all kinds of bodies and shit in there.
Hey, we got justice for the blue suitcase, though. That's all that matters.
No, it's a blue suitcase. It's sort of like a TARDIS. It's bigger on the inside. Climb inside. I swear it's bigger on the inside.
The effect was scarcely what I expected for the moonlight coming in by the great window on the grated staircase. Picked out everything in vivid black shadow or reticulated silvery illumination. Everything seemed to be in its proper position. The house might have been deserted on the yesterday instead of 12 months ago. There were candles in the sockets of the scones, and whatever dust gathered on the carpets or upon the polishing floor was disturbed so evenly as to be invisible even in my candlelight. How'd they get my house? A waiting stillness was over everything. I was about to advance and stopped abruptly. A bronze group stood upon the landing hidden from me by a corner of the wall, but its shadow fell with a marvelous distinctiveness upon the white paneling and gave me the impression of someone crouching to waylay me. The thing jumped upon my attention suddenly. I stood rigid. For half a moment, perhaps. Then, with my hand in my pocket, which might explain how I got so rigid, that held the revolver, I advanced, only to discover a Ganymede and eagle glistening in the moonlight. That incident for a time restored my nerve, and a dim porcelain Chinaman on a buhl table, whose head rocked as I passed, scarcely startled me. The door of the red room and the steps up to it were in a shadowy corner. I moved my candle from side to side to see clearly the nature of the recess in which I stood. Before opening the door, here it was, thought I, that my predecessor was found, and the memory of that story gave me a sudden twinge of apprehension. I glanced over my shoulder at the black Ganymede in the moonlight and opened the door of the red room rather hastily, with my face half turned to the pallid silence of the corridor. Okay, Diva.
Oh, okay. I entered, closed the door behind me at once, turned the key I found in the lock within.
Now I feel rigid.
Yeah.
I've barely begun, sir, and stood with the candle held aloft, surveying the scene of my vigil, the great red room of Lorraine Castle, in which the young Duke had died, or rather, in which he had begun his dying, for he had opened the door and fallen headlong down the steps I had just ascended. That had been the end of his vigil, of his gallant attempt to conquer the ghostly tradition of this place, and never, I thought, had apoplexy, yes, apoplexy, better served the ends of superstition. There were other and older stories that clung to the room, back to the half-incredible beginning of it all, the tale of a timid wife, and the tragic end that came to her husband's jest of frightening her. And looking round that huge, shadowy room with its black window bays, its recesses and alcoves, its dusty brown-red hangings and dark, gigantic furniture, one could well understand the legends that had sprouted in its black corners, its germinating darknesses. My candle was a little tongue of light in the vastness of this chamber. Its rays failed to pierce to the opposite end of the room and left an ocean of dull red mystery and suggestion sentinel shadows and watching darknesses beyond its island of light, and the stillness of desolation brooded over it all. I must confess, some impalpable quality of that ancient room disturbed me. I tried to fight the feeling down. I resolved to make a systemic examination of the place, and so, by leaving nothing to the imagination, dispel the fanciful suggestions of the obscurity before they obtained a hold upon me. After satisfying myself of the fastening of the door, I began to walk around the room, peering round each article of furniture, tucking up the valances of the bed and opening its curtains wide. In one place, there was a distinct echo of my footsteps. The noises I made seemed so little that they enhanced rather than broke the silence of the place. I pulled up the blinds and examined the fastenings of several windows. Attracted by the fall of a particle of dust, I leaned forward and looked up the blackness of the wide chimney. Then, trying to preserve my scientific attitude of mind, I walked round and began tapping the oak paneling for any secret opening. But I desisted before reaching the alcove. I saw my face in a mirror. White. What? Oh my God.
You're supposed to hit mute when you start doing that behind the scenes.
That wasn't me. I know everybody's thinking, that's not me. My hands are up. Hands up.
Handshake! Kaiser! Okay.
Yeah,
it's
when
not
we
Kaiser.
seeing your right one, that doesn't help, Shizzy. I know you're not the one-armed bandit.
What is that supposed to mean? I don't understand.
Oh my God. Oh, I'll read one more paragraph.
Okay,
if
get
y'all
back to
can do it.
tapping on the wood. That's what I wanted to do.
Oh, tapping on the wood. I'm always tapping on the wood. What do you mean?
There were 2 big mirrors in the room, each with a pair of sconces bearing candles, and on the mantel shelf, too, were candles in china candlesticks. All these I lit, one after the other. The fire was laid, an unexpected consideration from the old housekeeper, and I lit it to keep down any disposition to shiver, and then, when it was burning well, I stood round with my back to it and regarded the room again. I had pulled up a chintz-covered armchair and a table to form a kind of barricade before me. On this I lay my revolver, ready to hand. My precise examination had done me little good, but I still found the remoter darkness of the place and its perfect stillness too stimulating for the imagination. The echoing of the stir and crackling of the fire was no sort to comfort me. The shadow in the alcove at the end of the room began to display that undefinable quality of a presence, that odd suggestion of a lurking, living thing that comes so easily in silence and solitude. And to reassure myself, I walked with a candle into that and satisfied myself that there was nothing tangible there. I stood that candle upon the floor of the alcove and left it in that position.
Ah, yes, Kaiser.
Okay. Y'all are just pissing me off by doing these very sensual readings of the. No, we're going balls to the wall, dudes. Get out of here. We're tired of this bullshit.
I have to get warmed up. You control yourself, sir.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I was in a state of considerable nervous tension. Although to my reason there was no adequate cause for my condition, my mind, however, was perfectly clear.
Unlike my ability to do vocalizations tonight.
See, warming up.
Gotta warm up those
I
vocal cords.
postulated quite unreservedly
So
that
warm.
nothing supernatural could happen. At the best of time, I began stringing some rhymes together in Goldsby fashion concerning the original legend of the place. I spoke a few aloud, but the echoes were not pleasant. For some the same reason, I was abandoned for a time a conversation with myself upon the possibility of ghosts and haunting. My mind reverted to the old three old and distorted people downstairs, and I tired to keep it on the topic. The somber reds and grays of the room troubled me. Even as if 7 candles, the place was merely dim. Kind of like Hulk Hogan. The light of the alcove flared in the draft, and the fire flickering kept the shadows in penumbra perpetually shifting and stirring into a noiselessly flighty dance. Casting about for a remedy, I recalled the wax candles I had seen in the corridor, and I, with a slight effort, carrying a candle and leaving the door open, I walked out into the moonlight and presently returned with as many as 10. These I put in the various knickknacks of china with which the room was sparsely adorned, and lit and placed them where their shadows had lain deepest, some on the floor, some in the window recesses, arranging and rearranging them until at last my 17 candles were so placed that not an inch of the room but had the direct light of at least one of them. It occurred to me when some ghost came, I could warn him not to tip them over. The room was now quite brightly illuminated. There was something very cheery and reassuring in these little silent streaming flames. And to notice their steady diminution of length offered me an occupation and gave me a reassuring sense of the passage of time.
Anyway, meanwhile, back at the ranch. Oh, thank you, Shizzy. Appreciate that.
Even with that, however, the brooding expectation.
Sorry, did I surprise you?
Yes, it just makes me happy when he pops up. Go ahead.
It's just funny.
Move aside, Ernest. It's now puppet boy scared
It's the little
stupid.
things. It's the little things, okay?
Even with that, however, the brooding expectation of the vigil weighed heavily upon me. I stood watching the minute hand of my watch creep towards midnight. Then something happened in the alcove. I did not see the candle go out. I simply turned and saw the darkness was there. As one might start to see an unexpected presence of a stranger, a black shadow had sprung back to its place.
By Jove!
I said aloud, recovering from my surprise.
That draft's a strong one.
And taking the matchbox from the table, I walked across the room in a leisurely manner to relight the corner again. My first match would not strike, and as I succeeded with the second, something seemed to blink on the wall before me. I turned my head involuntarily, and I saw that the 2 candles on the table of the fireplace were extinguished. I rose at once to my feet.
Odd.
I said,
Why don't you bring that myself in a flash and have some mindedness?
I walked back, relit one, and as I did so, I saw the candle in the right of the sconce of the mirrors wink and go right out. And almost immediately, its companion followed it.
There you go.
The wick had suddenly been nipped between the finger and thumb, leaving the wick neither glowing nor smoking, but black. Got him! While I stood gaping at the candle at the foot of the bed, he went out, and the shadow seemed to take another step towards me.
This won't do.
I said in the first one, I lit another candle, and the mountain shadow followed.
What's up?
I cried in a queer high note, getting in my voice somehow. And the candle of the corner of the wardrobe rings out, says, and at one side you realize the alcove follows.
Oh, steady on.
I said,
Oh, those candles are wanted.
speaking with the half hysterical facetiousness that scratched their head at the match for a while.
For a metal candlesticks, they should have got propane.
My hands trembled so much that twice I missed the rough paper of the matchbox. As I momentarily emerged from the darkness as it ends, 2 candles and 3 mortar ends of the rooms were eclipsed. But by the same match, I also relit the large mirrored candles and those on the floor below the doorway. So, for that moment, I seemed to gains in my extinctions. But then I noiselessly valley there vanished 4 lights at once.
There are 4 lights.
In different corners of the room, I struck another match at cravings hosts and stood hesitating, ready to take it.
Bad part was I thought the same thing. With the 4 lights. I thought the same damn thing. There are 4 lights. Hank, I'm starting to think that this house is a safe house for the CIA.
Hell, you think everything's a safe house for the CIA. Anytime something weird or spooky starts happening, it starts immediately with the CIA.
Anyway. Oh, you know what? I'll just go ahead and pass.
Okay. Where'd you stop at the very top?
Very top.
Okay. As I stood undecided, an indivisible hand seemed to sweep out the 2 candles on the table. With a cry of terror, I dashed at the alcove, then into the corner, and then into the window, relighting 3 as 2 more vanished by the fireplace. And then, perceiving a better way, I dropped matches on the iron-bound deed box in the corner and caught up the bedroom candlestick. With this, I avoided the delay of striking matches, but for all that, the steady process of extinction went on, and the shadows I feared and fought against returned and crept in upon me. First, a step gained on the side of me, and then on that. I was now almost frantic with the horror of the coming darkness, and my self-possession deserted me. I
Beat his pants.
He did. He sharded.
I got the train tracks.
Them skid marks.
That's right.
I think it left a little more than marks.
That fart goblin's coming after me.
Let the slime trail.
And them underwear gnomes ain't got no more.
Bastards
to me.
Them bastards.
I leaped up in my shitty pants, painting from candle to candle, in a vain struggling against that remorseless advance. I bruised myself in the thigh against the table. I sent a chair headlong. I stumbled and fell and whisked the cloth from the table in my fall. The candle rolled away from me, and I snatched another as a rose. This motherfucker's gonna blow or just burn everything down. Damn.
I know.
We're gonna burn this to the ground.
Abruptly, this was blown out as I swung it off the table by wind of my sudden movement, and immediately the 2 remaining candles followed. But there was light still in the room, a red light that streamed across the ceiling and staved off the shadows from me. The fire! Of course, I could still thrust my candle between the bars and relight it. Thrust it, baby, thrust it.
That's how you relight it.
Yeah. Get it right between them
That gets it
bars.
going.
You have to thrust.
Hell yeah.
I lost my bone flat buttons.
I turned to where the flames were still dancing between the glowing coals and splashing red reflections upon the furniture, made 2 steps toward the grate, and incontently the flames dwindled and vanished. The glow vanished. The reflections rushed together and disappeared, and as I thrust the candle between the bars, darkness closed upon me like a shutting of an eye, wrapping about me in stifling embrace, sealed my vision and crushed the last vestiges of self-possession from my brain.
That's what happens when you don't aim.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not only palpable darkness, but intolerable terror. Yeah. The candle fell from my hands. I flung my arms in a vain effort to thrust that ponderous blackness away from me, and lifting up my voice, screamed with all my might, once, twice, thrice. Then I think I must have staggered to my feet. I know I thought suddenly of the moonlight corridor, and with my head bowed and my arms over my face, made a stumbling run for the door. But I had forgotten the exact position of the door, and I struck myself heavily against the corner of the bed. I staggered back, turned, and was either struck or struck myself against some other bulky furnishing. I have a vague
Sounds like Sarah Boone just fucking herself up all over the place. He beat me. No, you just fell down again.
What's that poking me?
You stomped me on my face. No, you fell into the bedpost.
Yeah.
Ow,
Like multiple times. I bet it sounded like a drum roll going down them stairs.
I have a vague memory of battering myself. Just to and fro in the darkness. A heavy blow at last upon my forehead, mushroom stamp of a horrible sensation of following that lasted an age, of my last frantic effort to keep my footing. And then I remember no more. I opened my eyes in daylight. My head was roughly bandaged, and the man with the withered hand was watching my face. I looked about me, trying to remember what had happened, and for a space I could not recollect. I rolled my eyes into the corner and saw the old woman, no longer abstracted, no longer terrible, pouring out drops of medicine from a little blue vial into a glass. "Where am I?" I said. "I seem to remember you, and yet I cannot remember who you are." I'm passing.
They told me then, and I heard of the haunted red room as one who hears a tale. We found you at dawn, he said, and there was blood on your forehead and lips. And your asshole was swollen and sore. Squeal like a piggy.
You got blood in your drawers.
God.
I wondered that
Yeah, but you broke Shizzy.
Somebody was going
Not
to
as
at
broke
some
as he
point.
was. He hopped on one of the bedposts.
Pucker it in. It's going to pinch a little.
Need some preparation aids.
I wondered that I had ever disliked him. The three of them in the
almost had a
daylight
good time.
seemed commonplace old folk enough. The man with the green shade had his head bent as one who sleeps. It was very slowly I recovered the memory of my experience. "You believe now?" said the old man with the withered hand. That room is haunted. He spoke no longer as one who greets an intruder, but as one who condoles with a friend. Or
Console.
a captive.
A captive.
Yes, said I. The room is haunted. And you have seen it. and we who have been here all our lives have never set eyes upon it. That fart goblin. Because we never dared. Tell us, is it truly the old Earl who... No, said I. It is not. I told you, said the... Oh, this is an old lady.
Yeah,
oh, well.
old lady.
Go ahead, Diva.
Oh, well, okay. I told you.
Said the old lady with the glass in her hand.
It is his poor young countess who was frightened.
It is not, I said. There is neither ghost of Earl nor ghost of Countess in that room, but a fart goblin. There is no ghost there at all, but far, far worse, something impalpable. But you can smell it.
Smell is everywhere.
Well, they said. The worst of all... Wait a minute. Oh, the worst of all the things that haunt poor mortal men, said I. Beano is the only cure, and that is in all its nakedness. Ooh! That naked fart goblin. Fear! Fear! That will not have light nor sound. Oh, but it has smell. That will not bear with reason. That deafness and darkness and overwhelms. It followed me through the corridor like rotten eggs and the sin of 1,000 years. It fought against me in the room. It choked me. It burned. It burns. It freezes.
It burns.
It burns us.
I stopped abruptly. There was an interval of silence. My hand went up to my pants. Oh, up to my bandages. The candle. Oh, who the hell am I doing now? Oh, the candles went out, one after another, and I fled for fear of an explosion from the methane. Then the man with the shade lifted his face sideways. Wow, lifted his face sideways to see me and spoke. That is it, he said. I knew that was it. The power of darkness. To put such a curse upon a home. It lurks there always. You can feel it in the daytime, even of a bright summer's day, in the hangings and the curtains. Those curtains. Keeping behind you, however you face about. In the dusk.
Oh, of course it stays behind, just fart goblin.
Yeah. And that smell follows you, so that you dare not turn. Oh, it is even as you say. Fear itself is in that room. Black fear, stanky fear, that methane fear, and there it will be. So long as this house of sin endures.
I knew it!
The house of sin.
The house of sin!
Get rid of the house of sin. Oh my gosh, the house of sin is just there. But of course, we have it here.
I swear whoever wrote that's
Now
been
we're
my
on
ex's
to
house.
the legend of Sleepy Hollow.
The legend. Why don't you go ahead? Go ahead, and I'll read this introduction, and we'll let Volstorm take over, because this was found among the papers of the late Diedrich Knickenbocker. The pleasing land of drowsy head it was, of dreams that wave before half-shut eye, and gay castles, almost, in the clouds that pass, forever flushing round the summer sky. Castle of indolence. And the bosom
Castle of Indulgence, maybe.
Well, we're talking about bosoms now, because in one of the bosoms of those spacious coves within,
gross.
And it was a gross little spot. There was this like indent in the eastern shore of the Hudson, and the broad expansion of the river. It was so large, it was denominated by ancient Dutch navigators, also known as Zappa, Frank Zappa, or Tappan Zee, and where they always shorten sail and implore the protection of St. Nicholas when they crossed.
What were they
there
tapping?
lies was St. Nicholas.
Oh, okay.
Like Santa Claus.
They were tapping St. Nick?
Yeah, they were tapping St. Nick. You want to get inside that,
won't
there's
be
a
getting
reason why
a lump of coal in your stocking this year.
Oh, yeah, I give him a lump of coal. Whew. Man, oh man. They crossed. There lies a small. Well, there lies a small market or rural port by some in which they call Greensboro, which is more generally and properly known as Terrytown, or we like to say it's the red light district. This name was given, we are told, in former days by the good housewives of Atlanta, of the adjacent county, from where the invertebrates' propensity of their husbands to linger about the village tavern on market days, because they were looking to get some tail. They wanted it. They're just like, we at the meat market right now. But be that as may, I don't vouch for that fact, but to merely advert to it for the sake of being precise and authentic, because not far from this village, it's a little queer, but perhaps about 2 miles, there's a little valley, or rather a lap of land among the high hills, which is one of the quietest places in the whole world, except for the screams of bloody murder. A small brook glides through it with just a murmur enough to lull one to repose. An occasional whistle of a quail, or the sound of a shotgun blasting that happy little quail out of the sky, or tapping of a woodpecker, or maybe a baseball bat smacking him around. It's almost the only sound that ever breaks upon the uniform tranquility. I recollect that with the stripling, my first exploit in squirrel shooting, I know about that, was in the grove of tall walnut trees, or we like to use hickory trees around these parts, that shades one side of the valley I had to wander into it at noontime. With all nature, and I was showing my nature boy side, was particularly quiet and was startled by the roar of my own gun. Oh, it was so loud, it just blasted away, and it broke the Sabbath stillness around. It was prolonged and reverberated by those angry echoes. If ever I wished for a retreat whither I might steal from the world and its distractions, and dream quietly away at the remnant of a troubled life, I know of none more promising than this little valley of mine. From the littlest repose of the place and the peculiar characters of its inhabitants, who are descendants from the original Dutch, we like them blonde-haired, blue-eyed boys, settlers, this his sequestered land had long been known by the name of Sleepy Hollow, or whenever I open my legs, it's called Sleepy Hollow because it puts you to sleep. And its rustic lads, I told you they're big beefy boys called the Sleepy Hollow boys. Throughout that neighboring country, there was a drowsy, dreamy influence seems to hang over the land just like me and pervade this very atmosphere. Some say that the place was bewitched by a high German doctor. Well, we know that ain't true, because that German doctor, we kept him locked away somewhere else. During the early days of the settlement, others of an old Indian chief, well, that old Indian chief, the prophet or wizard of his tribe, he held these little powwows there before the country was discovered by Master Hendrik Hudson. Certainly it is, the place still continues under the sway of some witching power that holds a spell over the minds of them there good people, especially them boys, causing them to walk in a continual revere, or just sort of slightly bow-legged, as I like to leave them. There are all kinds of marvelous beliefs subject to trances and visions. Well, it might be the drugs that I'll be slipping at the GHB just makes them really happy.
Well, they was high.
Well, but they see strange sights, and that's just me and my leather cod sack. And hearing the musics and the voices in the air, the whole neighborhood abounds with local tales. I didn't spread none of them rumors, but haunted spots and twilight superstitions. Them stars they be shooting. Boy, I tell you, I'd make them see stars meteors glow oftener across the valley than any other part of the country. And the nightmare with the whole ninefold seems to make it the favorite scene of her gambles. I'll let you take over there, Volstorm. You got it.
All them boogeymans.
All them boogeymans. All them big old sweaty mans.
Sweaty mans.
Goodness. All them big old sweaty country mans. It just gets me all excited. The dominant spirit, however, that haunts this enchanted region seems to be commander-in-chief of all the powers of the air, is the apparition of a figure on horseback without a head. He didn't have a head. I'm telling you, he was headless.
I don't like that. I like it. The head.
It is said by some to be the ghost of a Haitian trooper whose head had been carried away by a cannonball in some nameless battle during the Revolutionary War, and who is even and anon seen by the country folk hurrying along in the gloom of night, as if on the wings of the wind, more like the wings of the devil. His haunts are not confined to the valley. Oh, no, sir! But extend at times to the adjacent roads, and especially the vicinity of a church at no great distance. Indeed, certain of the most authentic historians of these parts, who have been careful in collecting and collating the floating facts concerning this specter, this agent of evil, alleged that the body of the trooper having been buried in the churchyard, the ghost rides forth to the scene of battle in nightly quest of his head. We're all looking for a little head, ain't we? Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And that
It's
Russian...
all lies. I was an innocent victim. I was only following orders.
That's what they all say. And that the Russian speed, I don't know why they're mentioning the Russians and the Haitians, with which he sometimes passes along the hollow like a midnight blast, is owing to his bizarre, belated, and in a hurry to get back to the churchyard before daybreak. He got to get there in time for church. Yes, he does.
That's right.
Such is the general purport of this legendary superstition, which has furnished materials for many a wild story in that region of shadows. And the specter is known at all the country firesides by the name of the Headless Horseman of Sleepy Hollow.
Means he can't get no head.
It is remarkable that this visionary propensity I have mentioned is not confined to the native inhabitants of the valley. No, sir! It is unconsciously embodied in everyone who resides there for a time. However wide awake they may have been before they entered that sleepy region, they are sure in little time to inhale the witching influence of the air, smells like patchouli, and began to grow imaginative, to dream, and see apparitions of God knows what.
Oh, my. Mushrooms.
I mentioned this peaceful spot with all possible law, for it is in such a little retired Dutch valley is found here and there in both in the great state of New York, that population, manners, and customs remain fixed, while the great torrent of migration and improvement, which is making such incessant changes in other parts of the restless country, sweeps by them unobserved. That's why you got to build a wall. There are those little nooks of still water which border a rapid stream, where we may see the straw and bubble riding quietly at anchor, or slowly revolving in their mimic harbor, undisturbed by the rush of the passing currents. Though many years have elapsed since I trod the drowsy shades of Sleepy Hollow, yet I question
Question it.
whether I should not still find the same trees in the same families with the same tree that doesn't fork vegetating in its sheltered bosom.
Love bosoms.
In this byplace of nature, there abode in the remote period of American history, that is to say, some 30 years since, a worthy weight of the name of Ichabod Crane. This man who sojourned, or he has expressed it, tarried into Sleepy Hollow for the purpose of instructing the children of the vicinity. He was a native of Connecticut. Excuse me. A state which supplies the Union with pioneers for the mind as well as for the forest, and sends forth yearly its legions of frontier woodmen and country schoolmasters. The cognomen of Crane was not inapplicable to his person. He was tall but extremely lank, with narrow shoulders, long arms and legs, hands that dangled a mile out of his sleeves, feet that might have been served for shovels, and his whole frame most loosely hung together. Dear Lord, this boy was a stick figure.
Not as bad as his head.
He was all kinds of jacked up. He's just a little asshole.
His head was small. Sorry, ladies. And flat at top with huge ears for hanging on to, large green glassy eyes, and a long snap nose. Well, at least he's got something that'll be good to use. So that it looked like a weathered cock. Perched upon the spindle neck to tell which way the wind blew. To see him striding along the profile of a hill on a windy day, with his clothes bagging and fluttering around him, one might have mistaken him for the genius of famine descending upon the earth, or some scarecrow eloped from a cornfield.
Ooh, he was eloping.
Okay. Yeah, let's see. His schoolhouse was a low building of one large room, rudely constructed of logs, the windows partly glazed and partly patched with leaves of old copybooks. It was mostly ingeniously secured at vacant hours by a withe twisted in the handle of the door, and stakes set against the window shutters, so that a thought of a thief might get in with perfect ease. He would find some embarrassment in getting out, an idea most probably borrowed by the architect, Joost van Houten. Joost van Houten. From the mystery of an eel pot. Oy, people do that still. The schoolhouse stood in a rather lonely but pleasant situation, just a foot of a woody hill, with a brook running close by, and a formidable birch tree growing at one end of it. From hence the low murmur of his pupils' voices, conning over their lessons, might be heard in a drowsy summer's day, like the hum of a beehive, interrupted now and then by the authoritative voice of the master. Oy, there it is, in the tone of menace or command, or, peradventure, by the appalling sound of the birch, as he urged some tardy loiterer along the flowery path of knowledge. Oh, goodness.
Damn that birch. Get over there, birch. What you doing?
That is one way to call the flowery path, I would say. Yes. Truth to say, he was a conscientious man, always looking to please, he was, and ever bore in mind the golden maxim, spare the rod and spoil the child. Ichabod Crane's scholars certainly were not spoiled. Oh my. Oh my.
He liked to beat them children, just smacking them around. Child, you need to line up right now.
I would not have imagined it, however, that he was one of those cruel potentates of the school who joy in the smart of their subjects. On the contrary, he administered justice with discrimination rather than severity, taking the burden off the backs of the weak and laying it on those of the strong. Your mere puny stripling that winced at the least flourish of the rod was passed by with indulgence, but the claims of justice were satisfied by inflicting a double portion on some little tough, wrong-headed, broad-skirted, oh my, Dutch urchin who skulked and swelled and grew dogged and sullen beneath the birch. Oh, all this he called doing his duty by their parents, and he never inflicted a chastisement without following it by the reassurance, the consolatory to the smarting urchin, and that he would remember it and thank him for the longest day he had to live. Wow. Okay. My mind is especially in the gutter today.
We got our whooping stick. You're going to thank me for this later. Whack. You're going to thank me. Whack.
That sounds like a Saturday night.
Repent! Repent!
Always missing is the batteries and jumper cable.
When the school hours were over, he was even the companion and playmate of the larger boys. Oh, dear Lord.
Oh,
and
poor
on
creepy.
holiday afternoons would convoy some of the smaller ones home, who happened to have some pretty sisters or good housewives for mothers, noted for the comforts of the cupboard. Aye, that's what you call it, the comforts of the cupboard.
That's right.
Yeah.
I come over to Tutu, your youngin', and to teach you a thing or two.
And do you have your birch stick with you? That's what
I
I'm
have my
needing.
birch stick with me. I will use it on a weekend
I'll
only.
show you my shillelagh.
Indeed. It behooved him to keep on good terms with his pupils. The revenue arising from his school was small, and would have been scarcely sufficient to furnish him with daily bread, for he was a huge feeder, and though lank, he had dilating powers of an anaconda.
Oh!
My!
He could choke one down.
But to help him out, his maintenance, he was, according to country custom for those parts, boarded and lodged in the houses of the farmers, whose children he instructed. With these he lived successively, a week at a time, thus going the rounds of the neighborhood with all his worldly effects tied up in a cotton handkerchief.
He was like
It's
the
on
early
you.
UPS man.
Can Brown do for you?
He just arrives right
Oh,
on
he
time.
just stay for a week at a time.
You're peddling suitor.
Look at them shorts.
Ooh, bring your package over here.
You just bring that on inside now.
You're gonna be sleeping in the barn tonight, and don't you be looking at my farmer's daughter over there.
Oh, Lord. Oh, is it my turn?
Yeah.
Okie dokie,
Yeah.
here we go.
That all this might not be too onerous in the purses of his rustic patrons, who were apt to consider the...
Oh, wait, you already read that, sorry. Right?
No.
No?
No.
Sorry.
Who were apt to consider the cost of schooling a grievous burden. Schoolmasters as mere drones, he had various ways of rendering himself both useful and agreeable. He assisted the farmers occasionally in the lighter labors of their farms, helped to make the hay, mended the fences, took the horses to water, drove the cows from the pasture, and cut wood for the winter's fire. He laid aside, too, all the dominant dignity and absolute sway with which he lorded it in his little empire, the school, and became wonderfully gentle and ingratiating. He found favor in the eyes of the mothers by pushing the children, oh my, particularly the youngest, that's even worse, and like the lion bold, which wilsome and magnanimously the lamb did hold, he would sit with the child on one knee and rock the cradle his foot for hours together.
Okay, now I'm glad the headless horseman comes after him.
I do too.
After hearing this crap.
Yeah.
Well, he a little asshole.
Right?
Asshole.
Right?
Yeah. I was framed. It's all lies. I was framed.
So we're renaming him.
What's he killed Desi for?
Okay, I understand. Oh. My. In addition to his other vocations, he was a singing master of the neighborhood, and he picked up many bright shillings by instructing the young folks solemnly. It was a matter of which little vanity of him and Sundays to take his station at the front of the church gallery with a band of chosen singers. I lost my place. No. Where, in his own mind, he completely carried away with the palm of the parson. Certainly it is. His voice resounded far and above all the rest of the congregation, and where the particular quavers still to be heard in that church, and which may even be heard half a mile off. That's a couple of H's in a row. Quite to.
I can hear him a half a mile off. That's impressive.
That's good.
Yes,
he's doing his job.
It's got a set of airbags on him, that boy.
They were screamers.
Odd.
Can hear it just over the hills.
That's right.
Over the hills and through the woods, to my house they go.
In the palm of the parson.
It just seems to get
Just
more
like a
and
little
more
altar boy.
disgustingly strange as further we go.
Yes.
Yes, anyway. And he was quite to the opposite side of the mill pond on a Sunday morning, which was said to be legitimately descended from the nose of Ichabod Crane. Thus, by the divers little makeshifts that the ingenious way, which is commonly denominated by hook and by crook, with the worthy pedagogue who got only tolerably enough and was thought by all who understood nothing of the labor of headwork to have a wonderfully easy life of it. That was a fucking mouthful.
I knew he was a pedagogue. I just knew it.
Yeah, just knew it. The fruity voices are making my tummy hurt.
Just saying.
It's okay. We make other parts of you hurt later on there, sweetheart.
Just keep going and going and going.
Just make sure you got lots of baby oil.
Okay, Diddy.
I say, well, if we're going to go fruity, might as well go really fruity.
A schoolmaster was generally a man of some importance in the female circle of the rural neighborhood, being considered a kind of idle gentleman-like personage of vastly superior taste and accomplishments to the rough country swains of, and indeed inferior in learning only to the parson. Good gravy Marie. His acceptance, therefore, is apt to occasion some little stir at the tea table at a farmhouse, and the addition of the supernumerary dish of cakes and sweetmeats, or peradventure, the parade of a silver teapot. Our man of letters, therefore, was peculiarly happy in the smiles of all the church country damsels. How he would figure among them in the churchyard between services on Sundays, gathering grapes from them from the wild vines that
He's
were
grabbing those
around
grapes in the wild.
Mm-hmm.
Where else are you going to grab them?
I swear.
Just pop those grapes right in my mouth. Oh, so special.
Oh, God.
Yeah, he's handling them vines there. Ooh, yeah.
Swirl them around before you swallow them.
Yeah, thanks, Volstorm.
Got the altar boys in the back gargling the grape.
They just explode in your mouth.
It's just a pop of flavor.
Taste the rainbow.
I just feel the seeds flow down my throat.
the cock gobbler. It's back.
I still think I should have read that first one I showed Diva and Volstorm.
Oh my god.
Sorry.
Oh. Anyway, meanwhile, back at the ranch. All right. Let's just keep going, shall we?
Yeah, you're right there, just in case you lost your place.
Yeah, I did actually.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna
them grapes.
Sorry.
Yeah, we're gonna go back to the posh British accent because that Gomer that can get a little bit difficult after a while.
It's a little hard to
Anyway. Yeah, yeah, of course. I'm sure you would go there. Yeah.
Yes, I
Press
would.
those cheeks and make some wine.
It's around the surrounding trees, reciting for the amusement hall the epitaphs of the tombstones for sauntering, with the whole bevy of them along the banks of the adjacent mill pond, while the more bashful country bumpkins hung sheepishly back, envying his superior elegance and address. From the half-interned life, also, he was kind of a traveling gazette, carrying the whole budget of local gossip from house to house, so that his appearance was always greeted with satisfaction. He was, moreover, esteemed by the women as a man of great erudition, for he had read several books, quite thorough, and was a perfect master of Cotton Mather's History of New England Witchcraft, in which, by the way, the most firmly and potentially believed. He's a witch. Burn him at the stake.
He's
Throw him in the pond.
Burn that bitch at the stake. Take him down. Witches float. Throw them in the water. If they don't drown, they're a witch.
It was a superstitious little shit.
Wait. Did they have the third nipple that the little
was so
familiar gets to
paranoid.
feed on?
Yeah.
Familiar.
How do you know he's little?
Well, winch! No, just
Winch! He was, in fact, an odd mixture of small shrewdness and simple credulity. His appetite for the marvelous and his powers of digesting it were extraordinary. And both he had increased by his residence in a spellbound region. No tales too gross or monstrous for his capricious swallow. There it is. There it is.
It being little to the left or large.
Yamaha, if you would, please. Go ahead, do the noise. It was often his delight after school was dismissed in the afternoon to stretch himself over the rich bed of clover bordering the little brook that whimpered by his schoolhouse, and there caught over old Mather's dials for clothes until the gathering dusk of evening made the printed page a mere mist before his eyes. Then, as he wended his way by swamp and stream and awful woodland to the farmhouse where he happened to be quartered, every sound of nature at that witching hour fluttered to excited imagination. The moan of the whippoorwill from the hillside, the boding cry of the tree toad, that harbinger of storm, the dreary hooting of the screech owl, all the sudden
No, I
rustling.
read it. All I heard was whips and chains and people screaming in pain. All I heard was like
No, the
whips
screams
and
of pain and anguish,
and boding cries.
the
I just
shrieks
heard
of torture, and the people with their heads on pikes, and all
all the usual things.
I just heard a lot of, several different ways to describe the different women he visited in the different houses.
Yes.
Some screech like hoot owls. Some, some
Cry like a tree toad.
Cry like a tree toad. Some, made the
was
moan of a
long-winded.
whippoorwill,
It was a long-winded.
Is the ever knowing sound of the Appalachian cock gobbler.
We know him well. We know him well. I hear it in the distance.
I hear it.
It's getting closer.
Coming. It's coming.
It's coming
for me.
Why did my ass just pucker up?
He just likes to eat things that he will choke on and pee on my bed for $200.
Oh my.
Take Grandma's quilt off the bed. I'm coming over.
Hey, Scooter.
Aye, the dreary hooting of the screech owl, or the sudden rustling of the thicket of birds, frightened from their roost, the fireflies too, which sparkled most vividly in the darkest places, now and then startled him as one of uncommon brightness would stream across his path, and if by chance a huge blockhead of a beetle came winging its blundering flight against him, the poor fellow, he was ready to give up the ghost with the idea that he was struck with a witch's token. His was only resource on such occasions, either to drown thought by or drive away evil spirits, was to sing psalm tunes and the old people's sleepy hollow as they sat by their doors in an evening were often filled with awe at hearing his nasal melody.
And length sweetness long drawn out,
Floating from the distant sill or a dusky road.
Go
ahead, Miss Tucker, you got it.
Take me home.
All right, show me where we're at. Let's see it.
Right here at the top.
Okay.
Mhm.
I try to make it easy.
Thank you. So, what is it?
Just like me.
Another of his sources of fearful pleasure was to pass long winter evenings with the old Dutch wives.
Oh,
As they yeah,
they're
baby.
they're plumper. They keep you warm in the winter.
That's right, baby. That's right.
A little cushion for the pushing. But
That's right.
love that one.
Diva, we're on air. I can't come to bed right now.
oh my.
I love you long time, sailor.
Ah, yes,
Now I
yes.
make you holla.
Come in bed,
Is it
sailor.
just me, or is it weird that like we're reading an old timey book that has no hints of sex or anything like that in it, and suddenly we're even more pervy than we usually are reading the actual sex novels?
What? Not us.
Have you met us?
Oh, it's just
Are you
That's
new
a
here?
bad thing. I'm just saying it's kind of funny to me.
feels
The word,
clean.
the word
We're so
forced
clean.
makes
Well,
us feel dirty. Okay.
well, scrubbed
Their
up and
fault.
lathered and
If the words didn't want to be read that way, they wouldn't have been written that way. Come on now, guys.
For
They're
real.
totally asking for it. Come on.
I mean, just think they're sitting spinning by the fire. Just imagine an old spinner.
They're asking for it, man.
Yeah,
It's
with
begging.
old spinner. Yeah, baby.
Old spinner. That means she's a light little thing. She may be 90, but I'll tell you what, she's a spinner.
Watch
Get the
out. She
lazy
might break
Susan
her
out.
hip.
Yep.
That's okay. She's got another one.
Get the lazy Susan out. It's time.
The only thing that's going to tighten up that cooch at this point's rigor mortis. Goddamn.
I can handle pissing on my duvet cover way better than him choking himself out on bones. I need to print Yamaha. That stuff is scary. If you can't pull it out, you have to force it out.
That's right. That's right. He's dead on.
Oh God.
This is awesome. Okay, so as they sat spinning by the fire with a row of apples roasting and sputtering along the hearth, and listened to their marvelous tales of ghosts and goblins and haunted fields and haunted brooks and haunted bridges and haunted houses, and particularly of the headless horseman or galloping Hessian of the hollow, as they sometimes called him. He would delight them equally by his anecdotes of witchcraft and of all the direful omens and portentous sights and sounds in the air, which prevailed in earlier times of Connecticut, and would frighten them woefully with speculations upon comets and shooting stars, and with the alarming fact that the world did absolutely turn round, and that they were half the time topsy-turvy. Well, good for you.
You mean the world's not flat?
I like that. Congratulations.
No, it's on a turtle. It's on a turtle's back.
That's what I thought.
I like that idea.
I want to get on his belly and rub it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but what? I don't know. It could be dirty.
Shizzy, you want to rub everything.
Anyway,
I know.
let's see what pops up. But if there was a pleasure in all of this, while snugly cuddling in the chimney corner of the chamber that was all of a ruddy glow from a crackling wood fire, and where, of course, no spectre dared to show its face, it was dearly purchased by the terrors of this subsequent walk homewards. What fearful shapes and shadows beset his path amidst the dim and ghastly glare of snowy night. With what wistful look did he eye every tumbling or trembling ray of light streaming across the waste fields from some distant window? How often was he appalled by some shrub? Shrubs are fine. It doesn't matter if it's not cut properly. Goodness, boy, don't be appalled by shrub. Whatever.
Maintenance is next to godliness.
I'm sorry. You got to keep the shrub nice and trimmed, because how else are you going to get inside the rabbit hole?
We require a well-trimmed shrubbery.
Adventures, you know what?
I like a well-trimmed bush. I'm just saying.
Every adventurer really appreciates when they get to the temple if they had to work for a little bit. So a little jungle, traversing through to the temple. Come on now.
Sometimes you gotta go through that shit with a machete, though. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I don't want to go through it with a machete. It bleeds enough as it is.
Oh God.
Ew.
It's like going on a treasure hunt. That is a little weird. But they go on a treasure hunt. Just think of it that way. There's a treasure buried underneath all that. Don't be appalled by the shrub, guys. All shrubs are beautiful, whether they're maintained or wild. We are not shrub hating here, people.
Or a little gray. I mean,
there
they're
you go.
all, sometimes the leaves start falling off the shrubbery. Anyway, go ahead. Keep on reading right there.
Thank you.
Okay, let's talk about bush.
Anyway, covered with snow. See, appalled by some shrub covered with snow. Like that's so geriatric. That's racist. Whatever you want to call that. Yeah,
it's a little white.
Which like a sheeted spectre beset his very path. How often did he shrink with curdling awe at the sound of his own steps on the frosty crust beneath his feet? And dread to look over his shoulder, lest he should behold some uncouth being tramping close behind him.
Yeah, you don't want somebody coming up behind you while you're trimming the bush.
Well, or especially a tramp. I mean,
if you're tramping,
Yeah,
just saying.
Well, I'm just saying there is a stamp for that.
And how often was he thrown into complete dismay by some rushing blast howling among the trees? And the idea that it was the galloping Hessian on one of his nightly scourings. Okay.
I'm telling you.
All these, however, were mere terrors of the night. phantoms of the mind that walk in darkness. And though he had seen many specters in his time, and been more than once beset by Satan and Satan in divers shapes.
I knew it.
You did, Pastor, you did.
Shrooms are a hell of a thing.
Divers shapes in his lonely preambulation. Yet daylight put an end to all these evils, and he would have passed a pleasant life of it, in despite of the devil and all his works, if his path had not been crossed by a being that causes more perplexity to mortal than man, than ghost, goblins, and the whole race of witches put together. And that, my friends, oh yeah, was a woman.
That was a woman.
She had boobies. Oh yeah.
Babs. She make you do evil
Wait,
things.
Witches don't have boobies? What? I'm confused.
I don't know. All I know is this Satan get thee
I'm
behind
sure
me.
that they do because of the old saying, colder than a witch's. You know what I mean.
Teat.
Teat tire. There you go.
Tatas. Lamps. Okay. Among the musical disciples who assembled one evening and each week to receive his instructions in Salamody, was Katrina von Tassel, the daughter of the only child of a substantial Dutch farmer. Oh yeah, she had big tatas.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, farmer's boobies.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Farmer's daughter.
She was a blooming lass. Oh yeah. A fresh 18.
Hey, she's legal.
Yeah.
She's like Bebe. She couldn't even see.
Plump as a partridge, ripe and melting. And why was she melting?
I don't know.
Melts in your mouth. That's why.
Not in your
Look,
hands.
That's right.
You don't have to sell me. I'm buying it. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Okay.
She was
Just saying.
perpetually moist.
So here to
Moist.
recap, we have a Dutch milkmaid who is a blossoming 18 who is plump and ripe, and she's melting. I don't know if it's too hot. I don't understand. And she's rosy cheeked as one of her father's peaches.
I
and
like to shake them
universally
peaches.
famed.
Well,
Not merely for her beauty, but her vast expectations.
Oh,
She liked it.
she was a wild child.
She knew what she liked.
Oh yeah.
She
nothing wrong
wanted.
with that.
She's gonna get some.
I remember that Playboy centerfold.
Yeah.
The milkmaid.
Well, that's how Grandma's Boys and Grandma's Boy were like 18 hours. I slept on my first booby for 18 hours. But anyway, okay. She was a little of a coquette, as might be perceived even in her dress, which was a mixture of ancient and modern fashions, as most suited to set off her charms.
Oh, that's what we call them now.
Yeah, we can
call
see
them
them
charms.
boobies, baby.
We see them in charms.
She wore the ornaments of pure yellow gold, which her great-great-grandmother had brought over from Sardom, the tempting stomacher of the olden time, withal a provokingly short petticoat to display the pettiest foot and ankle in the country round. You hussy!
Oh yeah.
You
Hey,
hussy!
she's a hussy.
She's out there wearing.
showing
She's pulling that hemline up. She's wearing a corset. She's already
Got
plump
the
and
ankle
luscious.
showing.
I'm having flashbacks to some of Diva's high school
Oh.
photos.
I don't know. She's showing me some ankle. She's showing an
asking
ankle.
for it.
Yeah, look at that ankle, baby. Show me some ankle.
Foot and an ankle, ladies,
That
you're not supposed to be
malleolus does it
showing
for
that
me.
foot and
I'm
ankle.
gonna have to go with you on this one. She's asking for it. She's just
I'm telling you.
all them charms and that ankle. I'm telling you, she's got me
Tease.
hot and bothered over
What a
here.
tease.
I'm telling you.
Just slap out that ankle, show that foot. You know that the OnlyFans, man, we got only milkmaids right now.
Hey, that's not a bad idea.
Hey, well, we know what the most common confession was in that town.
We done saw her foot.
And her ankle. And her big old breastises.
Well, she's
I'll
plump.
give you an egg if I can see your ankle. Alrighty. So, old Ichabod Crane had a soft and foolish heart towards the sex.
Me too.
Yeah, most of us do. And it is not to be wondered at that so tempting a morsel soon found favor in his eyes. More especially after he had visited her in her paternal mansion.
And she's rich? Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Old Baltus Van Tassel was a perfect picture of a thriving, contented, liberal-hearted farmer. He seldom, it is true, sent either his eyes or his thoughts beyond the boundaries of his own farm, but within those everything was snug, happy, and well-conditioned. He was satisfied with his wealth, but not proud of it, and piqued himself upon the hearty abundance rather than the style in which he lived. His stronghold was situated on the banks of the Hudson in one of those green, sheltered, fertile nooks in which the old Dutch farmers are so fond of nestling. A great elm tree spread its broad branches over it, at the foot of which bubbled up a spring of the softest and sweetest water, in a little well formed of a barrel, and then stole sparkling away through the grass to a neighboring brook that babbled along among alders and dwarf willows. Hard by the farmhouse was a vast barn that might have served for a church. Every window and crevice, which seemed bursting forth with the treasures of the farm, the flail busily resounding within it from morning to night. Swallows, she swallows, and Martin
Swallows.
Again, you don't have to sell me on her.
Twittering among the eaves and rows of pigeons, some with one eye turned up as if watching the weather, some with their heads under their wing or buried in their bosoms. I would bury mine in my bosom if I could. And others swelling and cooing and bowing their dames, or enjoying the sunshine on the roof. Sleek, unwieldy porkers. Porkers.
That's the plump chicks.
Were grunting in the repose of abundance from their pens. When sally forth now and then troops of sucking pigs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. As if to snuff the air. A stately squadron of snowy geese were riding in a adjoining pond, conveying whole fleets of ducks. Regiments of turkeys were gobbling.
Yamaha!
Gobble, gobble, bitches. And guinea fowls fretting about it, like ill-tempered housewives with their peevish, discontented cry. Before the barn door strutted the gallant cock.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's a gallant cock. I don't know. I'm just okay. That pattern of a husband, a warrior and fine gentleman, clapping his cheeks, his burnishing wigs, and crowing in the pride and gladness of his heart, sometimes tearing at the earth with his feet, and then generously calling his ever-hungry family of wives.
He's Mormon.
Yeah, he's a cock.
Don't judge.
He's a cock. Yeah, he's got lots of wives.
Okay.
Gotta make him lay some eggs.
And children to enjoy the rich morsel which he had discovered. Oh, some cock gobblers.
Franklin's lonely.
All right, I think I'm going to pass here. You get the nice word.
All right. I know, right? Yeah.
Thank you.
So now I'm going to be the one that's the asshole here.
Well, we all take turns.
The pedagogue's mouth watered as he looked up this sumptuous promise of luxurious winter fare. In his devouring mind's eye, he pictured to himself every roasting pig running about with a pudding in his belly and an apple in his mouth. The pigeons were snugly put to bed in a comfortable pie and tucked in with a coverlet of crust. The geese were swimming in their own gravy. Disgusting little things. And the ducks. And the ducks.
Wipe off at least.
I know, right? Here's a shirt. Clean yourself up. And the ducks pairing cozily in dishes like snug married couples. With a decent competency of onion sauce. In the porkers, he saw carved out the future sleek side of bacon and juicy relishing ham. Not a turkey, but he beheld daintily trussed up in leather and with its gizzard under its wing and peradventure.
Sometimes I just can't keep up with the words.
A pearl necklace of savory sausages. and
sauce for you.
And even bright Chanticleer himself, which is the cock, lay sprawling on his back in a side dish with uplifted claws, as if carving that quarter which his chivalrous spirit disdained to ask while living. As the enraptured Ichabod fancied all this, and as he rolled his green eyes over the fat meadowlands, the rich fields of wheat, of rye, of buckwheat and Indian corn, and the
Where's
orchards
buckwheat there?
burdened with ruddy fruit.
Hi, everybody. I'm buckwheat. Once, twice, 3 times Mayday.
Which surrounded the warm tenement of Van Tassel. His heart yearned after the damsel who was inherent in these domains, and his imagination expanded with the idea.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah, I'll expand those ideas.
How they might be readily turned into cash, and the money invested in immense tracts of wild land and shingled palaces in the wilderness. Nay, his busy fancy already realized his hopes, and presented to him the blooming Katrina, with a whole family of children mounted on top of a wagon loaded with household trumpery, which pots and kettles dangling beneath, and he beheld himself bestriding a pacing mare, with a colt at her heels, setting out for Kentucky, Tennessee, or Lord knows where. When he entered the house, the conquest of his heart was complete. It was one of those spacious farmhouses with a high-ridged but lowly sloping roofs, built in the style handed down from the first Dutch settlers. The low projecting eaves forming a piazza along the front, capable of being closed up in bad weather. Under this were hung flails, harnesses, various utensils of husbandry.
Damn straight.
Sex and magic, I'm just saying.
I smell sexy.
Sounds like an enclosed
I mean,
sex
if I'm
dungeon.
going to be a husband, I'm telling you, I got to have them flails and harnesses just to keep her strapped up.
She's wild.
And nets for fishing in the neighboring river. Benches were built along the side for summer use, and a great spinning wheel at one end and a churn on the other showed the various uses to which this important porch might be devoted.
Got to keep her busy churning that butter. Got to keep them arms nice and firm and the hands gripped. Things
Get to work,
nice and
bitch.
tight. Don't mind them calluses.
From this piazza, the wandering Ichabod entered the hall, which formed the center of the mansion and the place of usual residence. Here, rows of resplendent pewter, ranged on a long dresser, dazzled his eye. In one corner stood a huge bag of wool ready to be spun. In another, a quantity of linsey-woolsey just from the loom. Ears of Indian corn and strings of dried apples and peaches hung in gay festoons along the walls, mingled with the god of red peppers. and a door left ajar gave him a peep into the best parlor, where the claw-footed chairs and dark mahogany tables shone like mirrors. Andirons, with their accompanying shovel and tongs, glistened from their covert asparagus tops. Mock oranges and conch shells decorated the mantelpiece. Strings of various colored birds' eggs were suspended above it. A great ostrich egg was hung from the center of the room, and a corner cupboard, knowingly left open, displayed immense treasures of old silver and well-mended china. From the moment Ichabod laid his eyes upon these regions of delight, the peace of his mind was at an end, and his only study now was how to gain the affections of the peerless daughter of Van Tassel. In this enterprise, however, he had more real difficulties than generally fell to the lot of a knight-errant of yore, who seldom had anything but giants, enchanters, fiery dragons, and such like easily conquered adversaries to contend with, and had to make his way merely through the gates of iron and brass and walls of adamant to the castle keep, where the lady of his heart was confined. All which he achieved as easily as a man would carve his way to the center of a Christmas pie.
Getting that pie.
I do like pie.
Just saying, put pie.
Yeah, kiss my pie.
And then the lady gave him her hand as a matter of course. Ichabod, on the contrary, had to win his by the way of heart of a country coquette, beset with a labyrinth of whims and caprices, which were forever presenting new difficulties and impediments, and he had to encounter a host of fearful adversaries of real flesh and blood, the numerous rustic admirers who beset every portal to her heart and every other orifice, keeping a watchful and angry eye upon each other, but ready to fly out in the common cause against any new competitor.
You know, cock blocks.
Yeah, cock blockers. You gotta keep them cock blockers at bay.
Now, do you want me to keep going, or do you want to go?
Oh, you can do. You're doing just fine. You can go as long as you like.
Oh,
Yeah, go as long as you like.
Do it. Just keep it nice.
Among these,
Just as long as your stamina will hold out.
Yeah.
oh, we'd be here all night, baby.
Oh, I don't know. I can't compete.
I can go for hours and hours. Among these, the most formidable was a burly, roaring, roistering blade of the name of Abraham, or according to the Dutch abbreviation, Brom van Brunt, the hero of the country round, which rang with his feats of strength and hardihood. He was broad-shouldered and double-jointed. Ooh.
Hello.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah.
My, that could
He
be
can take care of himself.
He can pleasure himself in the dark.
Just saying, he's got strength and
With
hardihood
his
and double jointed.
With his short curlies, with short curly black hair, and a bluff but not unpleasant countenance, having a mingled air of fun and arrogance. From his Herculean sweaty frame and from his Herculean frame and great powers
You need
of
to stop
limb,
stroking the mic.
he had received the nickname of Brawn Bones, by which he was universally known. He was famed for great knowledge and skill in horsemanship, being as dexterous on horseback as a Tartar, and an ice skater doing a sit-spin.
I thought that was tartar, like the stuff you put on your fish.
Tartar sauce.
Not bad.
The Tartar. Yeah, I got lost in the fish stuff. He was foremost. He was foremost at all races and the cockfights or sword fights, as they
Here they are talking about the cockfights again.
Just the tip, because then it's not gay. And with the ascendancy which bodily strength always acquires in rustic life, was the umpire in all disputes, setting his hat on one side and giving his decision with an air and tone that admitted of no gainsay or appeal. He was always ready for either a fight or a frolic. He liked them little wrestling matches. But had more mischief than ill will in his composition. And with all his overbearing roughness, there was a strong dash of waggish good humor at the bottom.
I bet he was at the bottom.
Yeah, he liked wiggling. He had 3 or 4 boon companions who regarded him as their model, and the head of whom he scoured the country, attending every scene of feud or merriment for miles around. In cold weather, he was distinguished by a fur cap, surmounted with a flaunting fox's tail, because Trojan hadn't been invented yet. And when the folks in a country gathering described this well-known crest at a distance, whisking about amongst the squad of hard riders. Wait a minute. Yeah.
He was hard riders.
Of hard
so
riders.
Hard. So hard.
Them
on leather and
rustlers.
chaps and chains and excited.
Why are you gay?
Who says I'm gay?
You are gay.
They always stood by for a squall. Sometimes his crew would be heard dashing along past the farmhouses at midnight with whoop and hollow like a troop of dawn Cossacks. And the old dames, startled out of their sleep, would listen for a moment till the hurry-scurry had clattered by, and then exclaim, "Aye, there goes Brombones and his gang." The women were rough back then.
Annie, what you doing underneath the gown?
They were some hardy women back in them days.
Hey,
The neighbors,
they be hearty.
the neighbors looked upon him with a mixture of awe, admiration, and goodwill. And when any madcap prank of rustic brawl occurred in the vicinity, always shook their heads and warranted Brom Bones was at the bottom of it.
I bet he was at the bottom.
He's a power bottom?
Wow.
Yeah.
He is.
Oh, okay. This ran-to-pole hero had for some time singled out the blooming Katrina for the object of his uncouth gallantries. And though his amorous toyings were something like the gentle caresses and endearment of a bear, get that man loving. Yet it was whispered that she did not altogether discourage his hopes.
He's so British.
It's like Baker's man juice. Certain it is, his advances were signals for rival candidates to retire, who felt no inclination to cross a line in his amours. Insomuch that when his horse was seen tied to Van Tassel's paling on a Sunday night, a sure sign that his master was courting, or, as it is termed, sparking.
Sparkling.
I thought that said spanking. I thought that said spanking.
He's in there getting a handful. Within all other suitors passed by in despair, and carried the war into other quarters, and beat themselves blind, and ended up with hairy palms in the morning. And
hey, love is a battlefield.
Everything else Granny
Love
said
is a
would
battlefield.
happen. That's right.
Such was the formidable rival that with whom Ichabod Crane had to contend, and considering all things a stouter man than he would have shrunk from the competition, and a wiser man would have despaired. He had, however, a happy mixture of palpability and perseverance in his nature. He was in the form of a spirit, like a supple jack-off, yielding but tough. Though he bent, he never broke. Yeah, you can bend him over, but can't break him.
Calluses on my hands.
Them kegels
And though
are
he-
working.
And though he bowed underneath the slightest pressure, yet the moment it was away, oh, he'd jerk that thing off as was it erect, and he carried his hide high as ever. Oh, he is so proud of himself.
Told
To have
you,
taken
calluses.
calluses. To have taken the field openly against his rival would have been madness, for he was not a man to be thwarted of his amours, any more than his stormy lover Achilles. Ichabod, therefore, made his advances in a quiet, gently insinuating manner. Under a cover of his character of a singing master, he made frequent visits at their farmhouse. Not only had anything to apprehend from his meddlesome interference of parents, which was so often cock-blocking in the paths of lovers, Bolt Van Tassel was an easy, indulgent soul. He loved his daughter better than even his pipe. Well, he hit that pipe, and like a reasonable man, an excellent father, let her have her way in everything, in every way. She was just a little hussy. His notable little wife, too, had enough to do to attend to her housekeeping. Get in that kitchen, woman. Manage that poultry.
Get your bitch ass back in the kitchen and make me some pie.
Make me some
pie.
Chicken pie.
Chicken pie.
My pie. For she sagely observed, ducks and them geese there and them foolish things, it must have looked after, but girls can take care of themselves, little hussies. Thus, while the busy dame bustled about the house, or plied her spinning wheel at one end of the piazza, honest Bolt would sit smoking his evening pipe, getting high, just rolling with it, and at the other watching the achievements of a little wooden warrior. What was a wooden warrior doing there? Who was
wooden warrior. Well, they didn't have silicone back then.
I was just gonna. Well, let's just say a lot of the coat racks were missing their handles.
I'm just saying, he was armed with a sword in each hand. He was valiantly swinging them swords in the wind.
What happened to the hook on the umbrella?
Well, but in the meantime, Ichabod, he'd carry on his little suit with the daughter by the side of the spring or to the great elm or something along the twilight, that hour so favorable to lovers' eloquence. Well, I profess I do not know how women's hearts are wooed and won. To me, they have always been matters of riddle and admiration. Some seem to have but one vulnerable point, or that nice little door of access, while others have thousands of doors of access that may be captured in 1,000 different ways. It is a great triumph of skill to gain the former, but a still greater proof of generalship to maintain possession of the latter. For a man must battle for his fortress at every door, every window, every access point. He who wins 1,000 common hearts is therefore entitled to some renown. But he who keeps undisputed sway over the heart of a coquette is indeed a hero. Certainly it is. This was not the case of the redoubtable Brown Bones, and from the moment Ichabod Crane made his advances, the interest of the formerly evident declined. His horse was no longer tied to the Paulins on Sunday nights, and a deadly feud gradually arose between him and the preceptor of that there Sleepy Hollow, Brom, who had it. Well, Brom, he had a degree of that rough chivalry in his nature. He wasn't worried about no sword fight. He would fain have carried matters to open warfare, settled their pretensions with the lady according to the mode of those most concise, with the simple reason as the knight errant of yore, by single compact. But Ichabod was too conscious of the superior might of this manly beast, with his muscles just a rippling underneath his adversary, to enter the list against him. Well, he had overheard them there boast of them Bones, that he would double the schoolmaster up, lay him on a shelf of his own schoolhouse, pound him like dog meat, wrap him up like a pretzel, and he was
pounding
just
him. Just keep pounding him.
Well, I'm feeling faint over here.
Well, he was too worried to give them that opportunity. He didn't want to give him that opportunity. He said, no, this is my virgin hole. There was something too extremely provoking as an obstinately pacifistic. He was pacific. It left Brom no alternative but to draw upon the funds of that rustic waggery in his disposition. So he would just wave it around all over the place, play off boorish practical jokes on his rival. Ichabod became the object of whimsical persecutions. Who in the hell wrote this? AI? Persecution by Bones and his gang of Rough Riders. Ooh, he had a whole gang of them. Well, they got all harried up to his hitherto peaceful domains. They smoked out his singing school by stopping up the chimney. Well, they broke into that there schoolhouse at night in spite of its formidable fastenings of wire and widow stakes, and turned everything topsy-turvy just like the planet. So that the poor schoolmaster began to think all the witches in the country held their meetings there. But that was still more annoying. Brown took all opportunities of turning him into a ridicule in presence of his mistress, and had a scoundrel dog whom he had taught to whine at the most ludicrous manner. And introduced a rival of Ichabod's to instruct her in psalmody. In his ways and manners, they went on for some time without producing any material effect on the relative situations of the contending powers, because Ichabod's an idiot. And on a fine autumnal afternoon, Ichabod in his pensive mood sat enthroned on the lofty stool from whence he usually watched all the concerns of his little literary realm. In his hand he swayed a What? Why was he swaying that thing around in his hand? That specter of despotic power, that birch of justice reposed on 3 nails behind the throne. Why you gotta keep that in the bathroom?
The birch of
constant
justice.
terror to evildoers. While on that desk before him, there might have been seen some sundry contraband articles and prohibited weapons detected upon the persons of idle urchins, such as half-munched apples, pop guns, whirligigs, fly cages, and whole legions of rampant little paper gamecocks. Why is he playing with those gamecocks? Apparently there have been some opponent. For him must be.
Oh, I mean, what's wrong with playing with cocks?
Well, it's all right, except whenever you're a little boy urchin, you don't need to be playing with those cocks. Apparently, there have been some opponent act of justice recently inflicted, for his scholars are all busy, intent upon them their books, or stylishly whispering behind them with one eye kept upon that their master. And a kind of buzzing stillness reigned throughout the schoolroom. It was suddenly interpreted by the appearance of a what? No. He was wearing a tow-cloth jacket and trousers, a round-crowned fragment of a hat like the cap of Mercury, and mounted on the back of a ragged, wild, half-broken colt, which he managed with a rope by way of a halter. He came clattering up to the school door with an invitation to Ichabod to attend a merry-making or quilting frolic to be held that evening at Mynheer Van Tassel's, and having delivered his message with that there air of importance and the effort of fine language to which this gentleman was apt to display on petty embassies of the kind, he dashed over the brook and was seen scampering away up the hollow, full of importance and hurry upon that there mission of his.
I was told I was impotent, so I had to look impotent.
So I dress impotent.
You shooting blanks. Oh, no, wait a minute, no.
All was now bustle and hubbub in the late quiet schoolroom. The scholars were hurried through their lessons without stopping at trifles. Those who were nimble skipped over half with impunity, and those who were tardy had a smart application now and then in the rear. To quicken their speed or help them over a tall word. Books were flung aside without being put away on the shelves. Inkstands were overturned, benches thrown, and the whole school was turned loose an hour before the usual time because they were a bunch of urchins, bursting forth like a legion of young imps, yelping and racketing about the green and joy of their early emancipation. Who in the hell wrote this? The gallant Ichabod now spent at least a half hour on the toilet. We don't. It must have been the figgy pudding.
Yeah, they didn't really wash their hands back then.
Hey, dysentery's a real thing, folks.
He's Clean up his best.
Brushing and furbishing up his best and indeed only suit of rusted black, and arranging his locks by a bit of broken looking glass that hung up in the schoolhouse. Pores. That he might make an appearance before his mistress. Oh, now it's his mistress. Interesting. In the true style of a cavalier, he borrowed a horse from the farmer with whom he was domesticated, a choleric old Dutchman of the name of Hans van Ripper, and thus gallantly mounted, issued forth like a knight errant in quest of adventures. Don't want to know why.
Goblins.
Surrounded by fart goblins. Not a pudding pop to be found. But it is meet I should, in the true spirit of romantic story, give some account of the looks and equipments of my hero and his steed. This ought to be interesting. The animal he bestrode was a broken-down plow horse that had outlived everything but its conscience. I know what it says.
He was like, put me out of my misery.
Please shoot me. Please put me down.
I want to be
behind the barn.
I want to be glued.
I don't care if you do it.
If you took that horse to auction, the only thing you'd get is 2 shotgun shells and a free ride to the glue factory.
Yeah.
Shoot, they might give you the
Just call me
shotgun.
Homers.
Here you go. Poor horse. It's a mule. It's a damn mule.
That's what
It is a mule.
I picture his voice just like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He was gaunt and had been shagged with a uke neck. A head like a hammer. His rusty mane and tail were tangled and knotted with burrs. One eye had lost its pupil and was glaring and spectral, but the other had the gleam of a genuine devil in it. Explains the head like a hammer. Still, he must have had fire and metal in his day, if we may judge from the name he bore of gunpowder. He had in fact been a favorite steed of his master's, the choleric Van Ripper, who at this point in time should be using the gunpowder. He was a furious rider who had infused, very probably, some of his own spirit into the animal, for old and broken down as he looked, there was more of the lurking devil in him than any young filly in the country. Makes me wonder what Van Ripper did to this poor animal.
Well, he put some metal into him. Just saying. That's what he
Among
said.
other things.
Did he have a
Ichabod,
stool?
right. Ichabod was a suitable figure for such a steed. Well, because he was broke down too. He rode with short stirrups, which brought his knees nearly up to the pommel of the saddle. His sharp elbows stuck out like grasshoppers. He carried his whip perpendicularly in his hand like a scepter, waiting to use it down the road. As his horse jogged on, the motion of his arms was not unlike the flapping of a pair of wings. The small wool hat rested on the tip of his nose, for his scanty strip of forehead might be called, and the skirts of his black coat fluttered out almost to the horse's tail. This is a fugly person. Such was the appearance of Ichabod and his steed as they shambled out of gate Hans von Ripper, and it was altogether such an apparition as is seldom to be met with in broad daylight. Hello, Welsh lady. Happy Halloween to you.
Happy Halloween.
Yeah, happy Halloween. It is a Welsh tradition to torture you.
Ah, those damn Scots. It was, as I have said, a fine autumn day. The sky was clear and serene, and nature wore that rich and golden livery which we always associated with the idea of abundance and no sign of climate change anywhere. The forest had put on their sober brown and yellow, while some of the trees of the tender kind had been nipped by the frosts into brilliant dyes of orange, purple, and scarlet. Streaming files of wild ducks began to make their appearance high in the sky and crapping on everything. The bark of the squirrel might be heard from the groves of beech and hickory nuts, and
Not anything to do with it.
Gotta watch out for them squirrels, man. They're
unless
nuts.
Shizzy lived in the damn neighborhood. And the pensive whistle of the quail at intervals from the neighboring stubble field. You either need to let it grow or shave it.
Don't let it stubble.
It does not. Stubble did not work in the 80s. It doesn't work now.
So itchy. Ew.
I know.
I know.
Like sandpaper.
It hurts the upper lip a lot.
So aggravating.
I know.
Rubs up against your thighs. Oh, I'm sorry. The small
I was
birds.
talking about
The small birds were taking their farewell banquets. In the fullness of their revelry, they fluttered, chirping and frolicking from bush to bush, and
Yeah,
tree to tree. Capricious from the very profusion and variety around them. There was an honest cock robin, the favorite game of stripling sportsmen, with its loud, querulous note. I can't
Chirp, chirp.
Chirp.
I'm just sitting in a tree. That's my chirp. Chirp, chirp. It's like a pink rattlesnake that hides in the bushes and goes hiss, hiss.
Stay away from that cock robin.
You stay away from that pink rattlesnake sticking out of the bushes.
Gotta watch it bites.
Hiss, hiss.
And
At
the
least it
twit
spits at you.
and the twittering blackbirds flying in sable clouds, and the golden-winged woodpecker with his crimson crest, his broad black gorget and splendid plumage, and the cedar bird with its red-tipped wings and yellow-tipped tail and its little Montiero cap of feathers, and the blue jay. Dear Lord, how many birds are we going to describe?
I know, just like this long
Because it's the next one.
Jesus. And the blue jay, that noisy coxcomb, in his gay light blue coat and white underclothes, screaming and chattering, nodding and bobbing and bowing,
And a blueberry beret.
and pretending to be on good terms with every
Hey.
songster of the grove. He wore a blueberry beret.
Look at me, look at me. My beret goes with everything.
It's my camouflage.
Or nothing at all.
That's why they gave us those powdered blue fucking berets. You better stop or I'll shoot. I'm gonna spray you
Stop
with
it, or
my
I'll
silly
slap-
string.
Stop it or I'll slap you. Slap, slap, slap.
Stop or I'll scream stop again.
What is it, English police force?
Worse.
Yeah, fucking UN.
UN. Stop her off
UN
screen.
is
Stop
in
again.
uni.
Hey, that was our original. I think I told you that one. That was that was what the original translation. Because originally we got like the Croatian translation, right?
Yeah.
And it was translated incorrectly. Come to find out, and it actually came out as "stop or I'll come," as in I will come over there. But you can see how it would sound. So then from there on, we just used the Bosnian translation.
So they laughed and started firing.
It's like, wait a minute, this isn't right. Well, one of our staff sergeants, he was actually Croatian, and so he acted as one of our interpreters.
Yeah.
So he was like,
like,
yeah,
that
this
doesn't
is,
sound right.
yeah. He's like, no, this is wrong. That's not right. Oh, okay. Stop or I'll come. You just stay right there.
Stop or I'll come.
I'm just gonna shoot all over you.
I will open fire like a shotgun.
That's right. I'm just gonna fill you full of lead.
I'll get it in your eye.
Not my eye.
Oh, it's on my face. Oh.
That wasn't me.
You'll go blind doing that.
That wasn't me. I didn't do that.
How'd you lose your eye?
Bunch of
The
fucking
UN guy
assholes.
shot at
I think
me.
they did that shit on purpose. No, I watch these stupid Americans. We'll get them.
Right.
Man, it's
Watch them walk in there and say, "Shooter, I'll come."
He got a Purple Heart for getting shot in the eye.
Bunch of assholes. Moisturizer. Hand me another bottle. I'm running low.
Stop or I'll pass a resolution designating you a bad boy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
Oh. As Ichabod jogged slowly on his way, his eye. His eye. Can't say it. His eye ever open to every symptom of culinary abundance, raged with delight over the treasures of jolly autumn. On all sides he beheld vast stores of apples, some hanging on oppressive opulence on the trees, some gathered into baskets and barrels from the markets, others heaped on rich piles for the cider press. Further on beheld the fields of great Indian corn. Yes, I said Indian. What, with its golden ears peeping from their leafy coverts and holding out the promise of cakes and hasty pudding to be made into pudding pops. It was
really
a thing
hasty.
back then. And the yellow pumpkins lying beneath them, turning up their fair round bellies to the sun and giving ample prospects of the most luxurious of pies. And anon he passed the fragrant buckwheat fields, breathing the odor of the beehive. Oh, how sweet it smelled. And as he beheld them, soft anticipation stole over his mind of dainty slapjacks, well buttered and garnished with honey or treacle, by the delicate, limp, little dimpled hand of Katrina von Tassel.
Hands are so soft.
Dainty slapjacks. Well, hold on. Go back. I want to read it.
Yeah, dainty slapjacks.
The dainty slapjacks, well buttered and garnished with honey by the delicate little dimpled hand of Katrina Van Tassel.
Oh.
What can't this woman do?
She can cook.
She's clean. She can churn that butter.
She can do
She
all.
can honey some slapjacks like nobody's business.
She can slapjack
All
that
right,
honey.
Diva.
Oh,
Get
okay.
some.
Thus, feeding his mind with many sweet thoughts and sugared suppositions, he journeyed along the sides of a range of hills which look out upon some of the goodliest scenes of the mighty Hudson. The sun gradually wheeled his broad disk down in the west. The wide bosom of the Tapon Zee lay motionless and glassy, except that here and there a gentle undulation waved and prolonged the blue shadow of the distant mountain.
Almost purple.
From mountains.
Almost purple.
Bounding.
Bounding mountains, big, luxurious mountains. A few amber clouds floated in the sky without a breath of air to move them. The horizon was of a fine golden tint, changing gradually into a pure apple green. And from and from that into the deep blue of the mid-heaven. A slanting ray lingered on the woody crests of the precipice that hung over some parts of the river, giving greater depth to the dark gray and purple of their rocky sides. A sloop was loitering in the distance, dropping slowly down with the tide.
Schooner.
The schooner.
Don't worry.
Her sail hanging uselessly against the mast.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
spent. It's all
Yeah, it
spent.
was.
Spent, just rest up against that mast.
As the reflection of the sky gleamed along the still water, it seemed as if the vessel was suspended in the air. It was toward evening that Ichabod arrived at the castle of the Heer Van Tiesel, which he Van Tiesel? Where did I get that from? I don't know.
I don't know. You think
Tietzel, which he found thronged with the pride and the flower of the adjacent country. Old farmers, a spare leathern-faced race in homespun coats and breeches, blue stockings, huge shoes, and magnificent pewter buckles.
Yeah.
Their brisk, withered little dames in close-crimped caps, long-waisted short gowns, homespun petticoats with scissors and pincushions and gay calico pockets hanging on the outside.
Yes, girl.
Buxom lasses, almost as antiquated as their mothers, except wear a straw hat, a fine ribbon, or perhaps a white frock gave symptoms of
nothing at all.
gave symptoms of city innovation. The sons in short, square-skirted coats with rows of stupendous brass buttons, and their hair generally queued in the fashion of the times, especially if they could procure an eel skin for the purpose.
Remember, they didn't have Trojan back then.
Yeah, they figured out the sheeps. They helped.
Ew. It being esteemed throughout the country as a potent nourisher and strengthener of the hair.
And everybody thinks I'm weird for saying just wash it out and use it again. That's what they did.
That's what they did.
That's what they do.
Brom Bones, however, was the hero of the scene, having come to the gathering on his favorite steed, Daredevil, a creature, like himself, full of mettle and mischief, and which no one but himself could manage. He was... Oh, Lord.
Sorry.
Oh, dear. Oh, dear. He was, in fact, noted for preferring vicious animals, given to all kinds of tricks, which kept the rider in constant risk of his neck, for he held a tractable, well-broken horse as unworthy of a lad of spirit. Fain would I pause to dwell upon the world of charms that burst upon the enraptured gaze of my hero as he entered the state parlor of Van Tassel's mansion. Not those of the bevy of buxom lasses with their luxurious display of red and white, but the ample charms of a genuine Dutch country tea table in the sumptuous time of autumn. Such
Looks like a handmaiden's tale.
Such heaped up platters of cakes and various and almost indescribable kinds, known only to experienced Dutch housewives. There was the doty donut, the tender oly coke. I don't know how you say that.
I think that's cock.
And
oily cock? Is
oily
that
cock. And the crisp and crumbling cruller, sweet cakes and short cakes, ginger cakes.
We love ginger cakes. All right,
and
cakes.
And the whole family of cakes. And then there were the apple pies, the peach pies, the pumpkin pies.
The pudding
besides
pies.
Delicious slices of good, rich ham and smoked beef, and moreover,
beef you could smoke.
and moreover, delectable dishes of preserved plums and peaches and pears and quinces, not to mention broiled shad and roasted chickens, together with bowls of milk and cream, all mingled higgledy-piggledy, pretty much as I have enumerated them, with the motherly teapot sending up its clouds of vapor from the midst. Heaven bless the mark. I want breath and time to discuss this banquet as it deserves, and I am too eager to get on with my story. Happily, Ichabod Crane was not in so great a hurry as historian, but did ample justice to every dainty.
Oh, every single dainty, baby.
Man, I'm hungry.
I just want to get inside that pudding pie, do a lot
Now
of
I'm hungry. Damn it.
He was a kind and thankful creature whose heart dilated in proportion as his skin was filled with good cheer, and whose spirits rose with eating as some men's do with drink. He could not help, too, rolling his large eyes round him as he ate, enjoying every last delicious bite, and chuckling with the possibility that he might one day be lord of all this scene of almost unimaginable luxury and splendor.
I get pretty excited about eating too. So
That's right. Get down deep inside there and eat that damn thing. Face first.
Then he thought how soon he'd turn his back upon the old schoolhouse, snap his fingers in the face of Hans von Ripper and every other not good word patron, and kick any itinerant pedagogue out of the doors that should dare to call him comrade. Old Baltus von Tassel moved about amongst his guests with a face dilated with content and good humor, round and jolly as the harvest moon. His hospitable attentions were brief but expressive, being confined to a shake of the hand, a slap on the shoulder, a pinch on the butt, a loud laugh, and a pressing invitation to fall to and help themselves. And now,
right, dig in.
Dig in,
She's
baby.
laying there for you. She's laying right there for you. Just
Some
go
of them
for
titties,
it.
bitch.
You don't need an invitation. Just get some.
And now the sound of the music from the common room or hall summoned the dance. The musician was an old gray-headed gentleman who had been the itinerant orchestra of the neighborhood for more than half a century. His instrument was as old and battered as himself.
That's right. Oh my. He been beating that thing too long.
beat the
Sometimes
shit out
the
of that
jokes
thing.
just write themselves,
They
folks.
didn't have a whole lot of entertainment back then. And those dark barns were mighty inviting.
Just saying. What the hell?
And the greater part of the time, he scraped on just 2 or 3 strings, accompanying every movement of the bow with a motion of the head.
Well, that's generally how it works.
Yep.
Bowing almost to the ground and stamping his foot whenever a fresh couple were to start. Ichabod prided himself upon his dancing as much as upon his vocal powers. Not a limb, not a fiber about him was idle. And to have seen him, and to have seen his loosely hung frame in full motion and clattering about the room, you would have thought that St. Vitus himself, that blessed patron of the dance, was figuring before you in this person.
That's Michael Flatley. He is the Lord of the dance, dear Lord. Everybody knows this.
No.
He was the admiration of all the gentlemen who, having gathered of all ages and sizes from the farm and the neighborhood, stood forming a pyramid of shining dark faces at every door and window, gazing with delight at the scene, rolling,
Just laughing at him.
rolling their white eyeballs and showing grinning rows of ivory from ear to ear. How could the flogger of urchins be otherwise than animated and joyous?
I'm just seeing white in the windows.
That's wrong. That's ignorant.
You want me to read the one earlier? God.
Look like a bunch of chiclets hanging in the window.
Oh my God.
Okay, maybe we should have read the other one.
Yeah, maybe we should have. Yeah.
Oh, God.
Awesome.
Y'all got a gumball machine out there? Oh my God. What's just wrong?
So wrong. So wrong.
Oh my God. Y'all wrong, you know that?
Remember, this was wrote by somebody from the North, the Union.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, this is 1820, whatever, I think.
Yeah.
If I remember right.
All right, Kaiser, you're up.
Oh, Lordy. Okay. I guess I should go ahead and do this then. All right.
The dance was at an end. Ichabod was attracted to the knot of sailor folk with old Van Tassel sat smoking at one end of piazza, gossiping over former times and drawing out long stories of the war. The Cold War. This neighborhood of the time of which I'm speaking is one of high favored places which abound with chronicle of great men. The British and American line run near it in the war. It had therefore been the scene of marauding and infested with refugees. Yes, we take care of those refugees in Mother Russia. We don't have to worry about that problem. They all go to Gulag. Anyway, cowboys and all of those kinds of border chivalry. Just sufficient time had elapsed to enable each storyteller to dress up his tale with a little becoming fiction, and that indistinctness of his recollection to make himself the hero of every exploit. There was a story of Dofio Martling, a large blue-bearded Dutchman, who had nearly taken a British frigate with his old iron 9-pounder from a mud breastwork, only that his gun burst. Oh, yes. At this 6th discharge. Really going for it.
You don't do it all at once, man.
You got to take your 9-pounder and do have a couple of discharges. Yeah. And there was an old gentleman who shall be nameless, being to which a miner with his lightly mentioned, who in the Battle of White Plains, being an excellent master of defense, parried a musket ball with a small sword, insomuch as he absolutely felt it whiz around his blade and glance off of the hilt. In proof of which he was ready at any time to show the sword with the hilt a little bit.
The man was liar. I tell you this again. He is liar.
Don't sword
I
fight,
need
man.
to dodge
Don't
bullets
whip
second
it
time.
out. Although it's bent to the left a little bit. We don't need to see that.
There were several more in that had been equally great in the field. Not one of whom but was persuaded that he had a considerable hand in bringing the war to a happy termination. But thank you. But all these were nothing of the tales of ghosts and apparitions that succeeded. The neighborhood is rich in legendary treasures of the kind. Local tales and superstitions thrive best in the sheltered, long-settled retreats, but they trampled underfoot by the shifting throng that forms in the population of most of the other country places. Besides, there is no encouragement for ghosts in most of our villages, for they have scarcely the time to finish their first nap and the food that we don't have because it is, I'm sorry, I was thinking of the old Soviet country, and turn themselves to the graves before their surviving friends have traveled away from the neighborhood so that they turn out at night and walk their rounds. They have no acquaintance left to call upon. This was perhaps the reason why seldom we hear of ghosts, except for our long-established Dutch communities. Yes, because the Dutch, they do the thing, I don't know. I'm just trying to riff here.
Freaks come out at night. Freaks come out at night.
Yeah, the freaks come out at night. Just don't say no.
All right. Oh, yeah, that's right. You moved it. All right. Okay. Wow.
The immediate cause, however, of the prevalence of such stories in these parts was doubtless owing to the vicinity of Sleepy Hollow. There was a contagion in the very air that blew from a haunted region. It breathed forth from an atmosphere of dreams and fancies, infecting all the land. Several of Sleepy Hollow people were present at Van Tassel's, and as usual, were doling out their wild and wonderful legends. Many dismal tales were told about funeral trains and mourning cries and wailing herds, and seen about the great tree where the unfortunate Major Andre was taken, and which stood in the neighborhood. Some mention was also given to the woman in white, a haunted, as I thought, that haunted the dark glen at Raven Rock, and often heard to shriek on winter nights before a storm. Having perished there in the snow, the chief part of the stories, however, turned upon the favorite spectre of Sleepy Hollow, the Headless Horseman, who had been heard several times of late patrolling the country, and it was said tethered his horse nightly among the graves and the churchyard. The sequestered situation of the church seems always to have made it a favorite haunt of troubled spirits. It stands on a knoll surrounded by locust trees and lofty elms, from amongst which its descent whitewashed walls modestly forth like Christian purity, beaming through the shades of retirement. A gentle slope descends into it, a silver sheet of water, bordered by high trees, between which peeps may be caught at the blue hills of the Hudson. To look upon this grass-grown yard, where the sunbeams seem to sleep so quietly, one would think that there were at least the dead might rest in peace. On one side of the church extend a white wooden dell, among which there is a large brook among the broken rocks and trunks of the fallen trees. Over a deep black part of the stream, not far from the church, was formerly thrown a wooden bridge, and the road that led to
a black part of the stream. What the hell?
Oh, I'm sure this is gonna be. Oh, jeez, I can't even. I just can't. My brain. Hitting that point of the night, my brain's just like.
It's shutting down. That's fine. You'll finish out the paragraph. You'll be good.
Oh yeah, yeah. The road that led to it, and the bridge itself, were thickly shaded by overhanging trees, which cast a gloom about it even with the daytime, but occasioned a fearful darkness at night. Such was one of the favorite haunts of the Headless Horseman, and the place where he was most frequently encountered. The tale was told of the old Brower, the old heretical disbeliever in ghosts. How he met with the horseman returning from his foray into Sleepy Hollow, and was obliged to get up behind him. Oh my! How they galloped over bush and brake, over hill and swamp until they reached the bridge, when the horseman suddenly turned into a skeleton, threw old Brower into a brook, and sprang over the treetops with a clap of thunder.
Meow! You guys good to finish out for the next half hour? Or is it going to be, do we need to continue this on next week?
I'm fine.
I'm good.
I don't care.
Yeah, let's just finish it out.
Yeah. It might take longer than an hour. I didn't realize it was going to be this long usually.
Well, if we read it in a normal canter, it's only like
which
an hour
we
and
never
a half,
do.
Which
Yeah,
we never do. So.
Well, I read through it and I was just like, oh, we'll have this done in no time. We're not even halfway through. I'm like, son of a bitch.
I knew when you were like, oh, it's short. You know, we'll have plenty of time to read something else. I'm like, Shizzy, do you know how we read things?
You should have stopped me. You should have slapped me.
Well,
damn it.
It's your channel. Jeez.
I know. You still should have said something. Son of a bitch. I'm not the smartest of individuals, just so you knows.
Well, Forrest.
All right. So are we continuing on?
Do it.
If you like. Yeah, do it.
All right. Top of the page we go. This story was immediately matched by a thrice marvelous adventure of Brom Bones, who made light of the galloping Hessian as an errant jockey. He affirmed that on returning one night from a neighboring village of Sing Sing, sorry,
That's a
I'm a
person
child.
now.
The neighboring village Sing Sing.
What country are we in?
Yeah, right?
And that's why they put the prison there, because it's so ridiculous.
It's so ridiculous.
Same thing.
Who the hell would go there?
He'd been overtaken by this midnight trooper that he had offered to race with him for a bowl of punch, and should have won it too, for Daredevil beat the goblin horse all hollow. But just as they came to the church bridge, damn it! All right, okay. It came to the church bridge. The Hessian bolted and vanished in a flash of fire. All these tales told in that drowsy undertone with which men talk in the dark.
Yeah.
The countenances of the listeners only now and then receiving a casual gleam from a glare of a pipe sank deep in the mind of Ichabod. He repaid them in kind with large extracts from his invaluable author, Cotton Mather. Oh, God. And added many marvelous events that had taken place in his native state of Connecticut, and fearful sights which he had seen in his nightly walks about Sleepy Hollow. The revel now gradually broke up. The old farmers gathered together their families in their wagons, and were heard for some time rattling along the hollow roads and over the distant hills. Some of the damsels mounted on pillions behind their favorite swains, and their light-hearted laughter mingling with the clatter of hooves echoed along the silent woodlands, sounding fainter and fainter until they gradually died away. And the late
by the biting pillows.
That's right, bottom.
That's why you couldn't hear me longer.
I'm so naughty. I'm so naughty. And the late sing noise and frolic was all silent and deserted. Ichabod only lingered behind, according to the custom of country lovers, to have a tete-a-tete with the heiress, fully convinced that he was now on the high road to success. What passed at this interview I will not pretend to say, for in fact I do not know. Something, however, I fear me, must have gone wrong, for he certainly sallied forth, after no very great interval, with an air quite desolate and chapfallen. Oh, these women! These women! Could a girl have been playing off any of her coquettish tricks? Was her encouragement of the poor pedagogue all a mere sham to secure her conquest of his rival?
I knew she was a trick.
She's a tramp. She's a hussy.
She's a trick.
She a hoe.
She a trick in a hole.
I'm fine with a hussy.
Look,
Heaven-
I
Hussy
came
all
up
over.
representing pimps and hoes, and I know a hoe when I see one.
She
She's
just
no
might
hoe.
need a pimp slap. It's
She
all
know a
right.
hoe.
Heaven only knows, not I. Let it suffice to say, Ichabod stole forth with the air of one who had been sacking a hen roost.
What?
Why is
Come
he
again?
sacking a whole hen roost? It says Ichabod stole forth with the air of one who had been sacking a hen roost.
Is he fucking chickens? Like,
That
I'm-
sounds disgusting.
That's the nastiest thing I've ever heard.
well, I
It's not where you're
Okay.
supposed to plant your seed, just saying.
No.
it seems I have so many anyway. Okay, I can't be reading stuff like this because then my brain goes off, and then I have all these questions, and then I'm thinking anyway. So Henry's rather than a fair lady's heart, without looking to the right or left to notice the scene of rural wealth on which he had so often gloated, he went straight to the stable, and with several hearty cuffs and kicks, roused his steed most uncourteously from the comfortable quarters in which he was soundly sleeping, dreaming of that poor steed. That poor, poor horse.
I call it rousing my steed too.
Except you don't kick it around and cuff it.
Well, sometimes you have to get them in the mood.
That's what hobbling's for.
That's right. That's right.
That's some dark shit. All right. Now we're cooking with Crisco.
Well, make sure you don't get away this time.
Hey, whatever works. We all have our thing, right? So it was anyway. It was the very witching time of night that Ichabod, heavy-hearted and crestfallen, pursued his travels homewards along the sides of the lofty hills which rise above Tarrytown, and which he had traversed so cheerily in the afternoon. The hour was as dismal as himself. Far below him, the Tappan Zee spread its dusky and instinct waves of waters, with here and there the tall mast of a sloop, riding quietly at anchor under the land. In the dead hush of midnight, he could even hear the barking of the watchdog from the opposite shore of the Hudson. But it was so vague and faint as only to give an idea of his distance from his faithful companion of a man. Now, and then, too, the long-drawn crowing of a cock love a good cock.
But it was accidentally.
Crow. 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 Crow.
Accidentally.
What's the gay rooster say?
Now and then, too, the long-drawn crowing of a cock, I just want to say cock again, accidentally awakened, would sound far, far off from the farmhouse away among the hills, but it was like a dreaming sound in his ear. No signs of life occurred near him, but occasionally the melancholy chirp of a cricket, or perhaps the guttural twang of a bullfrog from a neighboring marsh, as if sleeping uncomfortably and turning suddenly in his bed. All the stories of ghosts and goblins that he had heard in the afternoon now came crowding upon his recollection. The night grew darker and darker. The stars seemed to sink deeper in the sky, and driving clouds occasionally hid them from his sight. He had never felt so lonely and dismal. He was moreover approaching the very place where many of the scenes of ghost stories had been laid. A lot of ghosts been laid there. So, in the center of the road stood an enormous tulip tree, which towered like a giant above all other trees of the neighborhood, and formed a kind of landmark. Its limbs were gnarled and fantastic, large enough to form trunks for ordinary trees, twisting down almost to the earth and rising again into the air. It was connected with the tragical story of the unfortunate Andre, who had been taken prisoner hard by and was universally known by the name of Major Andre's tree. The common people regarded it with a mixture of respect and superstition, partly out of the sympathy for the fate of its ill-starred namesake, and the fact it was so hard, and partly from the tales of strange sights and doleful lamentations told concerning it.
So hard.
Fix bayonets!
It's so hard. Oh my God. Anyway, as Ichabod approached his fearful tree, he began to whistle. He thought his whistle was answered. It was but a blast sweeping sharply through the dry branches. As he approached a little nearer, he thought he saw something white. Well, you should have wiped it off. Hanging in the midst of the tree. He paused and ceased whistling, but on looking more narrowly, perceived that it was a place where the tree had been scathed by lightning, and the white wood lay bare. Suddenly, he heard a groan. Oh!
The white wood laid bare. Okay,
That's right.
okay,
Just
I'm
saying.
following you.
Suddenly, he heard a groan. Oh!
That's right.
That's what happens when you lay the white wood bare.
Oh, yeah.
His teeth chattered and his knees smote against the saddle. It was but the rubbing of
She did it right then.
It was but the rubbing of one huge bow upon another, and they
No,
were
we don't do that.
swayed about the breeze.
That's sword fighting.
That is
He
sword
passed the
fighting.
tree in safety, but new perils lay before him. About 200 yards from the tree, a small brook crossed the road and ran into a marshy and thickly wooded glen, known by the name of Wiley's Swamp. A few rough logs laid side by side.
What's her name, Wiley?
Wiley.
That's Wiley's Swamp.
That's Wiley's Swamp.
That's a swamp right there.
Get
I want
off.
to get in that swamp. It's
You'll lose your
nasty.
boots in it. That's all I'm telling you.
I've had my boots knocked a few times in the Wiley's Swamp.
I'm missing my keys. I can't find them anywhere. On the side of the road where the brook entered the wood, a group of oaks and chestnuts matted thick with wild grapevines threw a cavernous gloom over it. To pass this bridge was the severest trial. It was at this identical spot that the unfortunate Andre was captured, and under the covert of those chestnuts and vines were the sturdy yeomen concealed who surprised him. This has never since been considered a haunted stream, and fearful are the feelings of the schoolboy who has to pass it alone after dark. All right. As he approached the stream, his heart began to thump. He summoned up, however, all his resolution, gave his horse half a score of kicks in the ribs, and attempted to dash briskly across the bridge. But instead of starting forward, The perverse old animal made a lateral movement and ran broadside against the fence. Ichabod, whose fears increased with the delay, jerked the reins on the other side and kicked lustily with the contrary foot.
Lustily.
It was all in his vein. I mean, all in vain. His steed started, and it is true, but it was only to plunge to the opposite side of the road into a thicket of brambles and alder bushes.
To the left.
To the left, to the left. The schoolmaster now bestowed both whip and heel. Ooh, what kind of whip? And heel upon the starveling the starveling ribs of the old gunpowder, who dashed forward, snuffling and snorting, but came to a stand just by the bridge with the suddenness that had nearly sent his rider sprawling over his head. Just at this moment, a plashy tramp, by the side of the bridge caught the sensitive ear of Ichabod. $5 make you holler. In the dark shadow of the
Franklin's
grove.
lonely.
Sir,
That's
I can do
That's
things for
right.
a quarter. In the dark shadow of the grove on the margin of the brook, he beheld something huge, misshapen and towering.
You know
It's-
it was.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It stirred not, but seemed gathered up in the gloom, like some gigantic monster ready to spring upon the traveler.
Oh, dear.
So big.
So big.
All right, I'll finish this paragraph up.
Oh yeah, finish, finish me.
God. Finish us. Finish it off the only way you know how.
Oh God, yes.
And
check.
check.
Harder. The hair of the affrighted pedagogue rose upon his head with terror. What was to be done? To turn and fly was now too late, and besides, what chance was there of escaping ghost or goblin, if it such was, which could ride upon the wings of the wind? Summoning up, therefore, a show of courage, he demanded in stammering accents, Who are you? He received no reply. He repeated his demand in still more agitated voice. Still there was no answer. Once more he cudgeled the sides of the cudgeled. Okay. He cudgeled the sides of the inflexible gunpowder, and shutting his eyes, broke forth with involuntary fervor into a psalm tune. Just then the shadowy object of alarm put itself in motion, and with scramble and a bound stood at once in the middle of the road. Though the night was dark and dismal, yet the form of the unknown might now in some degree be ascertained. He appeared to be a horseman of large dimensions and mounted.
That's how I like them.
Oh, yeah.
I like
A horseman of large dimensions.
She likes them
Yeah,
big.
girl.
Yeah.
Mounted on a black horse of powerful frame.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you go black,
you never go back, baby.
Oh my God.
He made me an offer of molestation. Oh, he made no offer.
Hey.
Wow.
Wow.
Molest me, baby. Molest me. This is my no square. Okay. He made yes, square. He made no offer of molestation or sociability, but kept aloof on one side of the road, jogging alongside of the blind side of the old gunpowder, who had now got over his fright and waywardness. Pass it along.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, baby, finish it.
They want it finished off.
Ichabod, who had no relish for the strange midnight companion, and bethought himself of the adventure of Brom Bones with the galloping Hessian, now quickened his steed in hopes of leaving him behind. The stranger, however, quickened his horse at equal pace. Ichabod pulled up and fell into a walk, thinking to lag behind. the other did the same. His heart began to sink within him. He endeavored to resume his psalm tune, but his parched tongue clove to the roof of his mouth, and he could not utter a stave. There was something in the moody and dogged silence of this pertinacious companion that was mysterious and appalling. It was soon fearfully accounted for. On mounting a rising ground which brought the figure of his fellow traveler in relief against the sky, gigantic in height and muffled in a cloak, Ichabod was horror-struck on perceiving that he was headless. But his horror was still more increased increased on observing the head, which should have rested on his shoulders, and was carried before him on the pommel of his saddle. His terror rose to desperation. He rained a shower of kicks and blows upon Gunpowder, hoping by a sudden movement to give his companion the slip. But the spectre started full jump with him. Away then they dashed through the thick and thin, stones flying and sparks flashing at every bound. Ichabod's flimsy garments fluttered in the air as he stretched his long, lank body away over his horse's head in the eagerness of his flight. They had now reached the road which turns off to Sleepy Hollow, but Gunpowder, who seemed possessed with a demon, instead of keeping up, made an opposite turn and plunged headlong down the hill to the left. This road leads through a sandy hollow shaded by trees for a quarter of a mile, where it crosses the bridge famous in Goblin story. And just beyond swells the green knoll on which stands the whitewashed church and the standing of the fart goblin.
Of course, every time somebody says goblin, I think of the cock goblin.
Fart goblin.
That's what I think, the cock gobbler.
As yet the panic of the steed had given his unskillful rider an apparent advantage in the chase, but just as he had got halfway through the hollow, the girths of the saddle gave away, and he felt it slip from underneath him. He seized it by the pommel and endeavored to hold it firm, but in vain. And he just had time to save himself by clasping old Gunpowder round the neck. When the saddle fell to the earth, and he heard it trampled underfoot by his pursuer. For a moment, the terror of Hans Van Ripper's wrath paced across his mind, for it was his Sunday saddle. But that was no time for petty fears. The goblin was hard on his haunches, an unskillful rider that he was. He had much ado to maintain his seat, sometimes slipping on one side, sometimes on the other, and sometimes jolted on the high ridge of the horse's backbone with a violence that he verily feared would cleave him asunder.
Watch the nuts.
That horse almost split him in half.
Oh. That's what she said, man.
An opening in the trees now cheered him with the hopes that the church bridge was at hand. The wavering reflections of a silver star in the bosom of the brook told him that he was not mistaken. He saw the walls of the church dimly glaring under the trees beyond. He recollected the place where Brom Bones' ghostly competitor had disappeared. If I can but reach that bridge, thought Ichabod, I am safe. Just then he heard the black steed panting and blowing close behind him. He even fancied that he felt his hot breath. Another convulsive kick in the ribs, and old Gunpowder sprang upon the bridge. He thundered over the resounding planks and gained the opposite side, and now Ichabod cast a look behind to see if his pursuer should vanish, according to the rules, in a flash of fire and brimstone. Just then he saw the goblin rising in his stirrups, and in the very act of hurling his head at him. Ichabod endeavored to dodge the horrible missile, but too late. It encountered his cranium with a tremendous crash, and he tumbled headlong into the dust, and Gunpowder, the black steed, and the goblin rider passed by like a whirlwind. The next morning, the old horse was found without his saddle, and with the bridle under his feet, soberly cropping the grass at his master's gate. Ichabod did not make his appearance at breakfast. Dinner hour came, but no Ichabod. The boys assembled at the schoolhouse and strolled idly about the banks of the brook, but no schoolmaster. Hans Van Ripper now began to feel some uneasiness about the fate of poor Ichabod and his saddle. An inquiry was set on foot, and after diligent investigation, they came upon his traces. In one part of the road leading to the church was found the saddle trampled in the dirt, the tracks of horses' hooves deeply dented in the road, and evidently at furious speed, were traced to the bridge, beyond which, on the bank of a broad part of the brook, where the water ran deep and black, was found the hat of the unfortunate Ichabod, and close beside it, a shattered pumpkin. The brook was searched, but the body of the schoolmaster was not to be discovered. Hans Van Ripper, as executor of his estate, examined the bundle which contained all his worldly effects. They consisted of 2 shirts and a half, 2 socks for the neck, a pair or 2 of worsted stockings, an old pair of corduroy small clothes, a rusty razor, a book of psalm tunes full of dog's ears, and a broken pitch pipe. As the books and furniture of the schoolhouse, they belonged to the community, excepting Cotton Mather's History of Witchcraft, a New England almanac, and a book of dreams and fortune-telling, in which last was a sheet of foolscap, much scribbled and blotted in several fruitless attempts to make a copy of verses in honor of the heiress of Van Tassel. These magic books and the poetic scrawl were forthwith consigned to the flames by Hans Van Ripper, who, from that time forward, determined to send his children no more to school, observing that they never knew any good of this same reading and writing. Whatever money the schoolmaster possessed, and he had received his quarter's pay but a day or 2 before, he must have had about his person at the time of his disappearance. The mysterious events caused much speculation at the church on the following Sunday. Knots of cock-gazers and gossips were collected in the churchyard, at the bridge, and at the spot where the hat and pumpkin had been found. The stories of Brower, of Bones, and a whole budget of others were called to mind, and when they had diligently considered them all, and compared them with the symptoms of the present case, they shook their heads, and came to the conclusion that Ichabod had been carried off by the galloping Hessian. As he was a bachelor, and in nobody's debt, nobody troubled his head any more about him. The school was removed to a different quarter of the hollow, and another pedagogue reigned in his stead.
That ain't true. He owed me money. He owed me $20.
It is true, an old farmer who had been down to New York on a visit several years after, and from whom this account of ghostly adventure was received, brought home the intelligence that Ichabod Crane was still alive, that he had left the neighborhood partly through fear of the goblin and Hans Van Ripper, and partly in mortification at having been suddenly dismissed by the heiress, that he had changed his quarters to a distant part of the country, had kept school and studied law at the same time, had been admitted to the bar, turned politician, electioneered, written for the newspapers, and finally had been made a justice of the 10-pound court. Brombones, too, who, shortly after his rival's disappearance, conducted the blooming Katrina in triumph to the altar, was observed to look exceedingly knowing whenever the story of Ichabod was related, and always burst into a hearty laugh at the mention of the pumpkin, which led some to suspect that he knew more about the matter than he chose to tell. The old country wives, however, who are the best judges of these matters, maintain to this day that Ichabod was spirited away by supernatural means, and it is a favorite story often told about the neighborhood around the winter evening fire. The bridge became more than ever an object of superstitious awe, and that may be the reason why the road has been altered as of late years, so as to approach the church by the border of the mill pond. The schoolhouse, being deserted, soon fell into decay, and was reported to be haunted by the ghost of the unfortunate pedagogue and the plowboy, loitering...
Just plow it all night long.
And the plowed boy.
Why is the plowed boy there?
Loitering homeward of a still summer evening, has often fancied his voice at a distance, chanting a melancholy psalm tune among the tranquil solitudes of Sleepy Hollow.
Correction. I had sex with Kay.
Oh, wow. There's a postscript here. The postscript says, found in the handwriting of Mr. Knickerbocker, the preceding tale was given almost in the Knickerbocker. That's why I said
Like
Knickerbocker.
Like
My knickers are in a box. Lord have
That's why I
mercy.
said. The preceding tale was almost given the processed words in which I heard it related in a corporation meeting at the ancient city of Manhattan Toes, in which the present many of its sagest and most illustrious burghers. The narrator was a pleasant, shabby gentleman, old fellow in pepper and salt clothes, with a sadly humorous face, and one of whom I strongly suspected of being a poor son bitch, and he made such efforts to be entertaining. When his story was concluded, there was much laughter and approbation, particularly from 2 or 3 deputy aldermen who had been asleep the greater part of the time, because it's a boring story. There was, however, one tall, dry-looking old gentleman with beetling eyebrows, and he was maintaining a grave, rather severe face throughout, and he said, now... Then, folding his arms, he inclined his head, looking down upon the floor as if turning a doubt over in his mind. He was one of your wary men who never laugh but upon good grounds, and when they have that reason of law upon their side, when the mirth of the rest of the company had subsided and silence was restored, he leaned one arm on the elbow of his chair, and striking the other akimbo, demanded, with a slight but exceedingly sage motion of the head and contradiction of the brow, what was the moral of the story, and what went it to prove? Well, that storyteller, he was just putting a glass of wine to his lips as a refreshment after his toils, paused for a moment, looked as inquiring, and said, Sir, with that indefinite indifference, and lowering the glass slowly to the table, observed that the story was intended most logically to prove there is no situation in life but has its advantages and pleasures, provided we will but take a joke as we find it. That, therefore, he that runs races with goblin troopers is likely to have a rough riding of it. Ergo, for a country schoolmaster to be refused the hand of a Dutch heiress, as we like to call him, or slut, is in certain step to high preferment of the state. The cautious old gentleman knit his brows tenfold closer after the explanation, and he was sorely puzzled by the ratification of the syllogism, while methought one pepper and salt side eye with him something of a triumphant leer. At length he observed that all was very well, but still he thought the story a little extravagant. There were 1 or 2 points on which he had his doubts. Faith, sir, replied the storyteller, as to that matter, I don't believe one half of it myself. DK. The end.
The end.
There we go. Oof. Oof, oof, oof.
All that
Thank
rough
you.
riding, my ass is swollen.
I know.
All right.
Excuse
We're
me
gonna
while
end
I
this-
whip this out.
We're going to end this bad thing because I think all my peoples wants to be getting some sleep, and they need to get some.
For real.
Make sure
Ain't
that
no
you sub
rest
up
for the
all
wicked,
these
guys.
fine.
Oh.
There's plenty of rest for the wicked, except we don't get it around here none. I'll tell you. Make sure that you subbed up all these fine people. Make sure that you check out Volstorm and Diva, Spooky Diva, over there on the caliber and character. We also have I Have a Story, which he reads to your fine ears' content, will make you just masturbate upon and just
Oh, wow.
his voice.
Wow, you're just laying it out there. Goodness.
course, Miss Nocturna.
Stop or I'll come.
Please.
She's still working on it. She's still working on it. You will be finding her links as soon as she starts putting them things out there, and just know that it will warm you up in her tenderness. Make sure that you look at the illustrious Kaiser Pineapple that knows everything about them there movies that people be making, the dirty films, pornography, making dirty notes.
Oh, Lord.
They're doing all kinds of stuff. They're making Disney films. Ciao.
Thanks, everybody.
We love
Thank
you,
y'all.
Sinner.
Thanks, all.
Bye, y'all.
Love you guys.
Thank
Night.
you. Good night.
Cooler.